Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/AITA Stories. Today we have a very special episode for you, a compilation of some of the best AITA stories we've read over the past year. So sit back, relax, and enjoy a few hours of the most entitled people you've ever heard of. And by the way, Karen assured me that for every thumbs up this video gets, she won't try to get anyone fired for an entire week. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. My cousin shared my Netflix with her roommates, then got mad when I changed the password. A couple of months ago, my cousin Ashley asked if she could use my Netflix account. At the time, it didn't seem like a big deal. She's only a year older than me, and we grew up pretty close, so I figured, why not? I gave her the login, and that was that. For a while, things seemed fine. She had her own profile, didn't mess with my watch history, and I barely noticed that she was even using it. But then I started getting those "too many people are using this account" messages when I tried to watch something. I brushed it off at first, thinking maybe it was just a glitch, or that my younger brother had logged in at home. But it kept happening. Every time I tried to watch something, I'd get blocked out. I finally looked at the devices logged into my account, and I saw multiple TVs and phones that I didn't recognize. That's when I realized Ashley had been sharing my Netflix info with other people. I texted her and just asked casually, "Hey, did you give my Netflix login to someone?" She responded with, "Oh yeah, I gave it to Josh and Katie. They don't have accounts and they really needed it. Hope that's okay." Josh and Katie are her roommates. I barely even know them. And now, apparently my account was being shared across an entire apartment. I told her I really wasn't comfortable with that, and I asked her to log out of everything and just use her own account if she wanted to share with friends. She immediately got defensive and said that I was overreacting. Her exact words were, "It's not that serious. You already pay for it, so it doesn't cost you anything." I explained that it actually was a problem because it was kicking me off, and I'm the one paying for it every month. Plus, with the new password sharing restrictions, I didn't want to risk my account getting flagged or suspended. She just kept insisting it wasn't a big deal and said I was being selfish. Eventually, I changed the password and signed out all devices. I didn't make a big announcement or anything, I just quietly cut access. A week later, she texted me saying Netflix wasn't working and asked if I changed the password. I told her I did and that I had to keep it private since too many people were using it. She left me on read and hasn't really spoken to me since. We're not in a fight or anything, but it's definitely been a little awkward at family stuff. I kind of feel bad because I know she doesn't have a ton of money right now, but at the same time, I'm not some streaming charity. I said yes to her, not half her house. I just don't get how some people don't see a boundary until you enforce it. Did I handle this the right way, or should I have just let it slide? Not the jerk. She asked to use your Netflix, not run a streaming co-op out of her apartment. You were generous to begin with, and she took advantage of that. If someone starts calling you selfish for not letting 3 extra people piggyback off of something that you pay for, that's a pretty clear sign that they were never really grateful in the first place. Wow, imagine someone lets you borrow their Netflix and you give their password to strangers. Tell you what I'd do, I'd post each and every one of their watch histories on Facebook. You can tell a lot about a person by their Netflix watch history, and you can tell even more about them by their search history. Am I the jerk for encouraging our friend group to stop visiting a friend due to their house rules? So in our friend group, we had this long-standing tradition of weekly drinks, and for the longest time, one of our friends, who we'll call Sarah, was the host. She loved having everyone over, and honestly, it worked out great. We would all bring our own drinks, chill, and catch up. No drama and no issues. It was just a solid weekly hangout. A few months ago, Sarah got really into the vegan lifestyle. And I don't just mean she made the switch personally, she started actively promoting it. Every conversation somehow turned into a discussion about animal rights, factory farming, or the horrors of dairy. I'm all for people being passionate about their beliefs, but it got to the point where you couldn't even eat a slice of pizza around her without hearing about how cheese is basically a crime against humanity. For the most part, we let it slide. It was her thing, and we didn't want to start an unnecessary argument. Plus, she was still nice enough to keep hosting, and we all appreciated that part. But then, about a month ago, things took a weird turn. That night, one of the girls in our group, Lisa, brought out a bottle of Bailey's. She wasn't trying to make a statement or anything, she just liked it and thought it would be nice to share. The moment Sarah saw it, she absolutely flipped. She wasn't just annoyed, she was angry. She started going off about how she didn't want any dairy in her house, especially in her glasses. She made it clear that no amount of washing would ever make them clean again in her eyes. Lisa was completely caught off guard. We had all been bringing whatever drinks we wanted for years, and this was never an issue before. She stammered out an apology, but it was clear she was uncomfortable. Sarah, however, did not let up. She doubled down, basically telling Lisa that she should have known better and that she was being inconsiderate. The whole room got quiet, and you could feel how awkward it was. We tried to smooth things over, but the vibe for the rest of the night was off. Lisa barely spoke after that, and honestly, none of us even knew what to say. We all understood that Sarah had her boundaries, but her reaction was way more intense than it needed to be. After that night, I started asking around to see how everyone else felt about it. It turns out a lot of people admitted they were uncomfortable with how Sarah handled it. It wasn't just about the rule itself, but it was about how she enforced it. She didn't just politely ask Lisa to not bring dairy-based drinks again, she shamed her for it. So I suggested a change. I offered to start hosting at my place instead. That way we could avoid any more weird confrontations and everyone could just relax. The response was immediate. Everyone was on board and it wasn't even a debate. We all liked Sarah, but no one wanted to deal with another night like that. For the past month, we've been meeting at my place, and honestly, it's been great. No drama, no weird tension, just fun like it used to be. But now, Sarah seems really upset. She hasn't said anything directly, but you can feel it. She still comes to the meetups, but she's quieter, and it's obvious that she feels left out. I get it. Hosting was probably something she really valued, and I don't think she ever expected to lose that role. But at the same time, she brought this on herself. She had every right to set rules in her own home, but the way she reacted that night made people uncomfortable enough that they didn't want to keep going back. So now I'm stuck wondering, did we overreact? Should we have tried harder to talk through things instead of just switching locations? Or was this the right call? I feel bad because she clearly enjoyed being the host, but on the other hand, no one wants to feel like they're walking on eggshells just to have a casual drink with friends. She learned a hard consequence for her insanely rude behavior. That's on her. What did she think was going to happen? People would happily return to her house? I understand your discomfort now because she's upset, but it's not like you dropped her as a friend. If she wants to host again sometime, she should apologize for how she behaved. I've been a vegetarian for 14 years, and I just can't tolerate people being rude to others because they don't have the same dietary lifestyle. My mom pushed me to go out to eat, then pushed the bill off on me. Today after work, I was supposed to go grocery shopping for my mom. I get off a couple of hours early on Wednesday, so I figured I'd swing by my place to relax for a bit, then head over to hers. When I got there, she mentioned that her new credit card still hadn't arrived in the mail yet. She changes them out every few months because she's paranoid about identity theft, which means I usually end up helping her update all of her online subscriptions and her bills, since she's not great with tech. She brought up the missing card, but it wasn't really a big deal. She has 3 other active cards, so I figured she'd just use one of those. But for whatever reason, she didn't want to use any of them for groceries. I told her it was no problem. I could just go another day instead, no drama. Then, out of nowhere, she asked me if I could take her to Chili's for dinner. Now, when my mom says, "take me," it always means that she's paying. That's just how it's always worked. She's financially secure, thanks to my dad, and hasn't worked in decades. Anytime we go out, unless it's for something just for her, she covers the bill. My brother and I chip in when it's her birthday or something she specifically wants, and even my nephews do the same. It's not about being entitled, it's just how our family has always done things. I always thank her, especially now since money has been tight for me lately. Before we even left, I told her straight up that I didn't have the money to pay for dinner. My refund check hadn't cleared yet, and my next paycheck wasn't hitting until Friday. She still wanted to go. I figured she was insisting because she wanted to treat me like usual, so I agreed. Dinner was great. We talked, we laughed, and nothing seemed off. Then the bill came. She picked it up, looked at it for a second, then handed it to me without saying a word. At first, I thought she just wanted me to see it or something, but then I realized she expected me to pay. I reminded her again that I didn't have any money. She just sat there completely unfazed like it wasn't her problem. I didn't want to make a scene in the restaurant, so I quietly took out my phone and ended up covering the bill with a Cash App loan. That left me with 30 cents in my account. After I paid, I asked if she could leave the tip since I was completely tapped out. She made a big deal about it, acting like I was asking for something outrageous. She sighed, then pulled out 19 $1 bills from her wallet and slapped them down on the table, saying, "There, that's all I have." I told her to keep it and that I'd leave a tip the next time I came in, since I know the waiter. But honestly, the whole situation just left me feeling off. When we got outside, I was clearly upset, but I was keeping my voice down. I wasn't yelling, just trying to explain how frustrating the situation was. My mom got annoyed and told me I was acting up and being dramatic. I told her I wasn't trying to fight, just explaining that now I had to figure out how I was going to get gas and food for my kid until Friday. Instead of trying to understand, she snapped. She started yelling about how she and my dad never fought over money when he was alive. I told her that I wasn't fighting, I was just pointing out that this wasn't fair. My mom's always been tough to talk to. Lately, when I get frustrated, I notice I tend to raise my voice more, but this time I really didn't. I calmly explained that the issue wasn't just the money, it was that I told her I couldn't afford it and she still pushed for us to go out to eat. Naturally, I assumed she'd cover the bill like she always has, but apparently I was wrong. She looked at me and said, "Well, you had the money since you paid for it, so what's the big deal?" That's when it hit me. She really didn't get it. I tried one last time to explain. I told her it wasn't about whether I paid or not. It was the fact that I told her ahead of time that I couldn't. I only agreed to go because I assumed, based on our history, that she'd cover it. I didn't expect to get stuck with the bill when I was already struggling. So, am I the bad guy for getting upset with my mom after all that? You need communication. Don't go in debt for a meal at Chili's. And if you're that broke, you shouldn't be there often enough to be buddies with the waiter. Mom sucks if she has plenty of money and demands to go out, then refuses to pay. You're the jerk to yourself. Say no. Don't you have a backbone? You took money out of your kid's mouth for your ungrateful and entitled mom. Great parenting on both ends. Am I the jerk for not following my husband's family tradition? I'm 28 female, and my husband, who's 29, comes from a very traditional family. While we disagree with his family on many things, it's never really been an issue until now. I'm currently 8 months pregnant, and my husband and I couldn't be happier as we've been trying for a while. Since I first found out that I was pregnant, we've been discussing names for our baby. In my husband's family, the tradition wants the child to be named after his grandfather. Basically, firstborn men in his family only have one of two names, James or Henry. My husband's grandfather was James, so his name is James too. My husband's father is called Henry, so our child should be too, and so on and so forth. But my husband and I didn't really feel like calling our child Henry, and although it's a beautiful way to honor family members, we really wanted our child to have a name that would be personal, one that would truly be his. So we chose another name and decided to wait until after the birth to reveal it to everyone. This week, my mother-in-law came to visit us and help us set up for the baby. She brought us some presents, among which were a bunch of clothes on which she had embroidered the name Henry. I said that it was nice and I thanked her for it, but I told her that we wouldn't be naming our son Henry, as we had already told her in the past. She started insisting and saying that it was a tradition, so it had to be that way. I explained to her that we'd rather give our baby a name that we chose, and that Henry could be his middle name. She immediately went to my husband and started saying things like, "You're not going to let her do that to our family," and making it very dramatic, saying that I was breaking a tradition that went back hundreds of years. Honestly, not sure about that. My husband tried to explain that we both agreed on the name and all the reasons why we made that choice, but she wouldn't listen. She suggested that we name him Henry on paper as his legal name, and then we call him something else. But I thought that would be confusing for him, and I told her that he would be named what we chose. She kept begging my husband and saying that I was ruining the family tradition, and at one point, I lost it, which is partially to blame on hormones, I think. And I told her that this was our baby, so we did what we wanted, and we don't have to follow any stupid tradition. She stormed out, and my husband has since received texts from his father and sister accusing me of making his mother feel really bad, and some other stuff that I don't really remember. I get the importance of tradition and that it can be beautiful, but also I feel like that shouldn't be an obligation and it's okay to change things. We won't change our baby's name because we're really set on that, but maybe we were wrong for not following the tradition. I'm not entirely sure, and I'm mentally exhausted by all this drama. I will never understand this. What if your family had the same tradition? Who wins? Not the jerk in the slightest. Congratulations on your pregnancy, and give your sweet boy whatever name you and your husband choose. Edit to add. If you were having a girl, would you be in the clear to name her whatever you want? Your husband needs to snap back and say, "This is my decision," instead of allowing them to blame you. A tradition that requires guilt trips, emotional manipulation, and embroidered clothes to enforce is not a tradition. It's a control mechanism, not the jerk. Your child is not a vessel to carry their family's ego. He's his own person, and it's your and your husband's choice. Period. Delete all your files? Okay. Quite a few years ago, I was the senior graphic designer for a sign shop. Like any business, we had our fair share of difficult clients, but there was one customer who was always a pain. She was demanding, stubborn, and never wanted to listen to advice. Still, she was a returning client, so we did what we could to keep her happy. One day, the owner sent over a design request for a new sign that was going on a scoreboard as part of their sponsorship package at a local sports oval. Since it was part of the sponsorship deal, the football club was actually the one paying for it, not the client herself. Her company's logo was maroon, and for some reason, she wanted the background to be red. Normally, we used a white background for contrast, but she insisted on red. I politely told her that I wouldn't recommend that. First, it would be nearly impossible to read from a distance, especially across the oval. The colors were way too close together. Second, it was going to look terrible. Of course, I phrased it out much more professionally, but the message was clear. Usually, in situations like this, we'd just convert the logo to all white so it would pop against the background. But she refused. She wanted the maroon logo on a red background and nothing else would do. I gave her my professional opinion, but she shut it down and gave me the final approval. So the sign was made, installed, and just as I predicted, it looked awful. Oh well, we got paid, she was happy, and I moved on. A few months later, she reached out, asking for another sign to replace the first one. Apparently, her husband wasn't happy because, shocker, it was hard to read from a distance. She then had the audacity to suggest that we redo the sign for free because it looked terrible and was somehow my fault. Now, keep in mind, the football club had paid for the original sign, not her. I politely reminded her that she had approved the design and it wasn't my responsibility to fix something she insisted on despite my warnings. Not long after, her husband sent me a harsh email, basically blaming me for the whole mess. He ranted about how the sign wasn't in line with their company's branding and that I should never have made it that color. He demanded that I replace it. It was pretty obvious his wife was throwing me under the bus to cover up her own bad decision. So I did the only logical thing. I sent him the full email chain, including every single message where I had recommended against the design and where she had insisted on moving forward with it anyway. Then I made it very clear that I would not be replacing the sign for free. Shortly after, his wife sent me a final email, furious. She said they would never use our business again and demanded that I delete all of their files. Thank you, done. Hallelujah. I would never have to deal with her again. But deep down, I knew that wasn't true. Our sign shop also sponsored the sports oval, and since the club used it for all of their signage and printing, I knew their logo would be needed again at some point. But since she had been so adamant, I maliciously complied. I deleted everything, years worth of files, all properly formatted to print at the right colors, all set up to be slotted in easily for future work. Gone. A few months later, the football club needed their program printed, which included all of the sponsors. My moment had finally arrived. I happily informed my contact at the club that I needed this business's logo and advertisement file. He said he'd get them to send it over. For some strange reason, they didn't send it on time. I have no idea why, of course. So I submitted printing proofs without their logo or ad and let the club know that I still hadn't received the file. If they wanted the program printed in time, I needed it immediately. Now, I was kind of hoping we could just go ahead and print it without their ad, but the football club was on top of things and made sure they got in touch. Eventually, I received a short, almost panicked message from the business telling me to just use their usual ad. Oh, the one they demanded I delete a few months back? Sorry, I don't have it. I told them they'd need to send me a print-ready file in the correct size. It took them about 2 weeks to get it to me. When they finally did, they asked me to keep it on file for future designs. I later heard they had to pay someone to redesign their ad from scratch, and also had to get someone else to make a new sign to replace the one that, unsurprisingly, looked terrible. Since the football club never ordered a replacement through us, They definitely paid out of pocket for it. To this day, I still stick my finger up when I drive past their business. Am I wrong for not standing up for my pregnant fiancé who ate my daughter's cupcake? I'm 36, male, and I've been living with my fiancé, who's 33, for 3 years. I have a 10-year-old daughter from my previous marriage. Her mother passed when she was younger, so it's been just me and her for most of her life. My fiancé is currently pregnant with our first together, and while things have been mostly good, there have been some bumps along the way, especially when it comes to balancing my daughter's needs with my fiancé's pregnancy. Yesterday, my daughter asked me to pick up a giant cupcake from a bakery near my work. She wanted to take it to school and surprise her best friend for her birthday. It was really sweet, and I was very happy to do it. While I was there, I figured I'd grab an extra cupcake for my fiancée since she's been having cravings, and I thought she'd enjoy a little treat. When I got home, my fiancé ate her cupcake right away, practically inhaled it. My daughter, on the other hand, was so excited about hers that she carefully tied a nice ribbon around the box and put it in the fridge so it would be ready to take to school in the morning. She even kept checking on it a couple of times before bed just to make sure it was still there. Fast forward to this morning. My daughter woke up, went straight to the fridge, and immediately started screaming. The cupcake was gone. She was devastated. I had no idea what happened, but when I asked my fiancé about it, she casually said she ate it in the middle of the night because she was craving it and couldn't sleep. She didn't even look sorry. Before I could say anything, my daughter completely lost it. She was crying, yelling, saying she had spent so much time making it look nice and that her friend was going to be so disappointed. I was trying to calm her down when my fiancé got defensive and snapped. "It's called being pregnant, jerks." That just made everything worse. My daughter started screaming, saying she hated my fiancé, before running to her room and slamming the door. I was stunned. I didn't even know what to say. I knocked on her door and I tried to comfort her, telling her I'd buy her another cupcake and maybe drop it off at school so she could still give one to her friend. She just shook her head and said, "Don't bother." That broke my heart. She wasn't just upset about the cupcake, she felt like what she cared about didn't matter. I had to take her to school with her still sniffling in the car. The whole ride was silent. She barely even looked at me when she got out. Later, my fiancé texted me saying she was upset I didn't stand up for her when my daughter was mean to her. She said my daughter and I owe her an apology. I don't even know what to do. I'm sitting in my car feeling completely lost. Was I really in the wrong for not defending her? Because from where I'm sitting, she's the one who messed up. Stand up for your kid. Your fiancé was a greedy jerk. Pregnancy isn't a live or die situation, and she already had her cupcake. Your girlfriend was wrong, and this will be a big deal to your daughter if you don't have her back on this. My whole team secretly kept their tips while I put mine in the tip box. Why did they decide to fool me? I recently left my job at a restaurant, and one of the biggest reasons was realizing that my entire team had been secretly keeping tips while I was honestly putting mine in the designated tip box for monthly distribution. For months, I trusted that everyone was following the system, only to find out later that they were splitting the money among themselves in secret without including me. What hurts the most isn't just that they left me out, but that they actively deceived me. I thought we were all working together under the same system, and I had no reason to question it. Whenever I stepped away, I started noticing that sometimes the tip folders from my tables would disappear. I never actually saw who took them, but they'd be gone when I came back. At first, I thought maybe the managers had collected them early or something, but over time, I started realizing something was off. Then, I caught some of my teammates splitting tips among themselves. They weren't even trying to hide it, or at least not from each other, but they always made sure that I wasn't included. That's when it really hit me that this wasn't just a one-time thing. They had a whole system, an unspoken rule they all followed, and I wasn't part of it. Even the new employees, including a girl who joined around the same time as me, were brought into this secret system. Meanwhile, I was kept completely in the dark. I never asked about tips when I first started, just assuming everything was fair. Maybe that was my mistake. I didn't want to seem greedy or pushy, and I figured everyone was following the same rules. Turns out, I was the only one actually following them. What made it even worse was that even on big tables where multiple people worked together, they'd still split the tips among themselves in secret. I saw this happening on my last day, and that was when I decided I'd had enough. It was the final straw. I had spent months trusting these people, working hard alongside them, only to find out they had been lying to me the entire time. There were plenty of times when I was working as a runner, which meant I didn't expect a full share of the tips, but I still believed everything was being put into the tip box like it was supposed to be. I never asked questions because I thought it was all going towards the final pool. I genuinely thought I was doing the right thing. Was that my fault? Should I have spoken up sooner? Or was my biggest mistake just trusting that people were being honest? This is awful for so many reasons. I'm so sorry. Was management aware? Are you able to speak to them regarding your stolen tips? If you have any kind of documentation or evidence, you may be able to do something about this. None of this is your fault. You didn't make any mistakes. You were lied to and betrayed. You did learn a lesson though, and you did the right thing by leaving. There are a lot of dishonest and untrustworthy people in this industry. Look out for yourself in the future and be wary of trusting anyone else with your money. Good luck. My Karen girlfriend is demanding that I marry her. I'm 30, male. I've been with my girlfriend, who's also 30, for a year and a half. We live together in a house that I bought alone. Honestly, she's an amazing person. She's extremely caring, thoughtful, and beautiful. However, we see life very, very differently. With money, for instance, I make more than double her income, and because of this, I pay the vast majority of the bills, which I'm honestly fine with. She helps out with groceries and some bills, and it works. The problem is that she has lots of disposable income, and she treats it as such. She never has money for the things that she needs. Her car has problems. She needs to borrow money from me. She wants to go on vacation. She racks up massive credit card bills. She generally owes me between $1,000 and $4,000 at any given time, and when she starts paying me back, she inevitably needs to borrow more at some point. She literally spends it all on useless crap, constantly replacing our dishes, for example. She's extremely difficult to communicate with and reacts very harshly to things that make no sense to me. For example, I was engaged before we got together. She knew this. I've had junk mail show up with my ex's name on it, and I got absolutely blasted from her. She threatens to pack up and leave because of things like this, and I don't think I have control over them. And she will not explain why she gets so mad about it. Lots of things like this have been building up. Recently, the straw that broke the camel's back and destroyed my spark for her happened. She talked about marriage, having kids, etc. I asked her why she wants to get married, and she said, because she wants to throw a party. This seemed wildly inappropriate and a weak reason to make such a strong commitment. So I told her I'm not ready to marry her because of the reasons above, and similar things that aren't mentioned for length purposes. She lost her mind, cried, said she was going to pick up, said that things are not salvageable, then changed her mind and wants to work it out now. Am I the jerk? Why are there so many posts like this? OP, I love my partner. They're the most amazing, kind, caring, wonderful person ever. Also OP, they financially and emotionally mistreat me constantly. They stomp my reasonable boundaries and punish me for complete non-issues or just being myself. They tend to out themselves as being irrationally jealous and controlling, selfish, unstable, and constitutionally unempathetic during any sort of hard discussion. There's no way to communicate with them at all when they're upset. Why would you stay with this person if they treat you as you describe, let alone ask if you're the jerk for not marrying them on a whim? The reason she saw a wedding as just a party shows that she doesn't think of you as a person she wants to commit to and build a life with. She thinks of you as someone who is never going to leave her anyway and is great for funding a lavish party. She clearly was trying to manipulate you. Then when it didn't seem to be getting the results she wanted, switch tactics. She knows what she has in you, and of course doesn't want to leave the very cushy life that you give her. At least not until she's locked down what she thinks would be a better prospect. My brother proposed to my fiancée, his ex, and I'm ticked off. I'm 28, male. My brother, Mark, who's also 26, used to date my fiancée, Jen, who's 26, a year ago. For context, they dated back in August of 2022. They were only together for a month before he broke things off with her because he was bored of being in a relationship and never really wanted to settle down anyway. At the time they were dating, I was in a different state, so I had no idea he even had a girlfriend, and I had no idea who Jen was until I met her. Jen and I met at a bar when I moved back in October, and we hit it off really well. She was easily the most beautiful and intelligent woman I've ever met, and we met up a few times before we made it official. Fast forward to December, I finally bring her up to my family and suggest they meet her at Christmas. They knew that I was in a relationship, but I'm not the most open about my personal life, so I kept details about her to a minimum until I knew how serious we really were. My parents asked to see pictures, and they started passing my phone around the dinner table. Mark saw it and he blew up, calling me a bad brother for dating his ex-girlfriend, and he demanded that I break it off with her. I refused. When I asked Jen about it, she confirmed they dated and gave me the details about their breakup. It took a few weeks, but eventually Mark stopped bringing up me dating his ex, and I thought he was over it. On Jen's birthday this year, I took her out to a fancy dinner with both of our families and her closest friends, and I asked her to marry me. Mark flipped once again and blew up about me proposing to her, which I and my sisters immediately shut down. The incident happened this past weekend. Mark has been pretty quiet about the whole thing for the last 2 months. I didn't see him much and figured he went low contact with me, which I had no problem with. Then he invited me and Jen for a family dinner at his apartment with my parents and sisters. I thought it was weird, but my parents and sisters were also going, so we agreed to go. The dinner was nice, nothing too fancy, and we moved to the living room to talk. After 30 minutes into normal conversation, Mark stood up and told us he had an announcement. He made a long speech about being happy to have his family around for his big moment. Then he got on one knee and pulled out this cheap ring while asking Jen to marry him. Jen was confused and obviously uncomfortable and demanded that he put it away and stand up. My dad tried to make a grab for Mark, but I got to him first and I bopped him. I won't repeat most of what was said, mostly because I was too angry to even listen to most of it, but he said something along the lines of wanting to show me that Jen wasn't really into me and just wanted to get back at him. Before it could get worse, my parents rushed me out and promised to talk to him. It's been a few days since it happened, and I'm still ticked off. I don't know what to do at this point. I'm scared Jen might have second thoughts marrying me because of this. Any advice? I want to clarify a few things that I saw in the comments. 1. Jen and I are newly engaged. It was one of those feelings where we both knew we were in it for the long run. As far as it is, I'm sure about her. 2. When we met, I was the one who approached her, not the other way around. Whether she knew or had suspicions of us being related, I don't know. I asked after finding out they dated, and she says she had no idea. I didn't have a reason to doubt that, but I can admit this seemingly overreaction on Mark's part does raise red flags. 3. I had no idea she and Mark dated when I met her. Mark and I aren't close at all. We used to be, but as we grew up, we drifted apart and talked less and less. Before I moved back, we didn't really speak much aside from special days like his or my birthday. Jen knew of my family, but not much until I decided I was ready to introduce them to her. When she and Mark met again, I didn't get a sense of any residual feelings on either part. She didn't treat him like a stranger, but she also wasn't overly affectionate with him either. I was told this was a relationship that lasted a month. I didn't think I needed permission from Mark to ask her to marry me, but maybe that was wrong of me. I'm not sure. That being said, I plan to talk to Mark this weekend to lay everything out on the table and figure out what's up. I never asked for his side of their relationship, which is my fault for not doing my due diligence. If anything major or enlightening happens, I'll update, but for now, that's all I have. Update. I called Mark and asked him to meet up with me at my place to talk. I told him I would prefer Jen to be around for the talk as well, but I was cool with it if he didn't want her there. He agreed to talk to the both of us and showed up at my place around noon today. It was pretty quiet for a few minutes before I started the conversation. I apologized for not warning him I would be proposing to Jen, and I apologized for hitting him. He said it was whatever, but he appreciated the apology. I told him what Jen had said about the relationship and breakup when I asked her about it, and I asked him to confirm if that was true. I pretty much said that his reaction throughout the whole thing has been extreme, and I wanted to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding their relationship or downplaying how serious they were. He confirmed that they only dated for a few weeks, and he broke up with her because he lost interest. Jen asked if he was acting like this because he still had feelings or regrets about ending things with her. He said he could admit he thought she was more attractive than when he last saw her, but there weren't any feelings or regrets. He said he just didn't like seeing a girl he dated, even if it was short-term, with his older brother, and as a man, I shouldn't have violated him by pursuing things with his ex. I reminded him that I had no idea they dated, so it wasn't like I consciously did this knowing their history together. He shrugged me off and said it didn't matter. I still should have broken it off. He was adamant that if the roles were reversed, he would have done the same thing, which I doubt. I asked him why he proposed to her if he didn't have any lingering feelings. Basically, to sum it up, he was talking about it to one of his buddies who was around when Mark and Jen dated, and the guy put the idea in his head that maybe Jen knew from the start that we were related and was doing this to get back at him, considering Jen had been hung up on him after they ended it. He and his friend thought it would be a good idea to test it and see if they were right, so he came up with the idea to propose and see if she would dump me for him. Jen asked him to elaborate on why he thought she was hung up on him, and he told her that he had heard she was asking about him following the breakup and still hanging out at the places they used to go, so it was a valid assumption. Then for her to pop up randomly with his brother affirmed his suspicions. Jen told him she had only asked about him once following the breakup, and she had been hanging out at those places with friends before they started dating, and she wouldn't avoid them because of a breakup. She also told him she was offended at the idea that she would go as low as to pursue me just to get back at him. He shrugged and gave her a weak apology, but said that she had to see it from his point of view. He asked her if she really didn't know, and she told him that she didn't see the resemblance in us until we were in the same room, and we act nothing alike, so it never crossed her mind, and he said okay. That pretty much wrapped up the conversation. He did tell me before he left that I could take back his invite to the wedding because he can't bring himself to support our relationship knowing he used to date her. I told him he didn't have to worry about that as he was most likely not going to be invited anyway. It's been a few hours since our talk, and I do feel better. My parents aren't too happy about him being uninvited, but they understand that it was a mutual decision and probably for the best. My sisters told me they knew he didn't have a good reason for being a jerk, and they don't blame me for not wanting him at the wedding. As of now, I'm going to limit contact with Mark, and I doubt he'll reach out to me anytime soon either. PSA: It doesn't matter how sure you are about her. Dating for only a year before proposing is a really stupid idea. You're still in the honeymoon phase. Real talk is you don't become fully comfortable and 100% guards down and cards on the table until about 3 years into the relationship. 2 max. Am I the jerk for refusing to cook separate meals for my niece? I, female 42, live with my husband, male 45, and our daughters who are 18 and 16. We live in a different city from our families due to work. A few months ago, my sister asked me if her daughter, Kate, who's 19, can stay with us since she was starting college in our city. She was scared of her daughter moving away for a first time, especially to a big city like ours. I knew Kate from before lockdown times and remembered her to be a smart and sweet kid. I discussed it with my husband and we agreed that she can stay with us. Kate moved in around 2 months back. She was fine, came home on time, let us know her whereabouts, and no partying. The issue was with food. She had turned vegan. Normally I cook for my family. I cook just one meal for all, and we are all dairy-obsessed people. Milk for cereal, butter and pancakes, cheese and everything, eggs were our staple. Kate needed separate dishes altogether, and we needed vegan substitutes for her. Since those are way more expensive, I told my sister she should give money to Kate so she can buy it. She started telling me how family doesn't take money from family to feed kids. I told her I would feed Kate the same as my other kids, but I won't spend excess money on her. She said that's fine. Since her mom won't buy it, Kate started buying plant-based substitutes with her pocket money. For dishes like pancakes, I made food for her using her ingredients. But every time I made a huge non-vegan meal, she expected me to provide equivalent vegan meals. I drew the line at that. I can't spend so much time cooking another meal. She said everyone else got to eat while she wasn't left with anything to eat. I told her she's free to cook for herself and she hates that idea. It came to a boiling point last weekend when we had a barbecue dinner with friends. She got upset that her salad was very basic. It was good, only with chicken added, and had nothing else to eat. She complained, and I told her that she can go cook for herself. She got even more upset at that and called her mom crying about how I didn't make any good meals for her and expected her to fend for herself. My sister called me yelling at me how I didn't love her daughter and was intentionally excluding her. My parents are also taking their side. Am I the jerk? Did she turn vegan before or after moving in with you? If she was vegan before, did her mother cook her meals? Did she pay for vegan substitutes for her own daughter? I'm just trying to figure out why a 19-year-old adult still feels entitled and expects people to cook lavish meals for her with their own time and money. Not the jerk. OP. She was vegan before she moved in, though my sister didn't tell me that. Her mother bought and cooked vegan dishes for her. Then why doesn't her mother give her the money that would have been used to purchase her food? She was already spending it before her daughter left home, so it wouldn't make a big difference in her income. Why is it that you're family, so you have to cover it so she can keep her own money? OP. The age-old principle of she's staying under my roof, so I should provide for her. Not the jerk. If they could send her to a dorm, they would have to pay for her food as well. It was not good enough that you opened your home to her, but you had to cater also? Not sure which aspect of your family is more entitled, your niece, your sister, or your parents. None of them want to spend a dime, but expect your house to be like a resort for her that you don't get paid or tipped for. Maybe the best approach is telling them the housing situation isn't working out. There will be more howling until they realize there is no alternative that will cost them less. For some, everything is never enough. Am I the jerk for wanting to leave my boyfriend of 6 years, knowing he may be proposing soon? I, 23 female, have been dating my boyfriend, 25 male, for almost 6 years. My boyfriend and I started dating my freshman year in college in 2017. Everything was going really well, and everything just sort of fell into place. It just felt right. Until the lockdown hit in 2020, and we all got sent home to finish college virtually during my senior year. We've been in a long-distance relationship since then, because I then began attending graduate school for speech therapy. To save money, I lived with my parents, and he lived with his, who lived 3 hours away from me. When the long distance began, my only ask of him was that we be married when I graduate in August of 2023. In our families, it's super important that we're married before we live together. He saw this as reasonable and claimed it was something he really wanted. Then we could get married and get a place together once I'm done with school. Here's the dilemma. He still hasn't proposed yet, like we had agreed. He expressed that he was planning on talking to my parents to get their blessing before planning the proposal. He initiated a conversation with my parents about next steps in November of 2022 and hasn't said anything up until last week. He's been at my house 3 times and never sought after opportunities to say anything. He's putting it off, and there's only one reason why he would. It would be one thing if he had expressed that he wasn't ready for marriage, whether that be emotionally ready or financially ready. But he's been talking a lot about engagement for the last 2 years, getting my hopes up, and then nothing happens. One important thing to note is that he's an only child with a mom who has a meltdown when the idea of marriage or moving out of town is even considered. She's been an issue throughout our entire relationship because she's constantly trying to create division between us, whether that's talking crap about him to me or vice versa. He has now begun expressing fears of leaving his parents when he is the only one there to take care of them, and he's afraid of what they'll think of him if he leaves for a career opportunity or for me, who is seeking career opportunities in speech therapy in various locations. On to his conversation with my parents, which is the biggest concern I'm having. First, he told my parents he was planning on proposing this summer. He then expressed that he was afraid of commitment and sacrifice. My dad asked him what he meant, to which he responded, "Well, I like my me time and my space to play video games and watch sporting events, which my parents give me. I'm scared to give that up for a wife or to help with kids." This kind of broke me because he would have never said anything like this before moving back home with his parents. He's extremely comfortable with his life and doesn't want to change it. But I want to change mine. I want to move out and get an amazing speech therapy career opportunity when August rolls around. I want to get married and have kids. This was something I had wanted to do with him, but with his unsupportive parents and some of the concerns he's expressing to everyone but me, I'm really scared to proceed with him and include him in things such as apartment or job hunting. Things haven't been the same as they were before we started long distance for a long time. I've been trying to remain optimistic through all of this in case things do go back to the way they were once we get a place together. But the optimism is fading. I thought I could have the best of both worlds, the career and the guy, but I'm stuck at a crossroads instead, and I'm incredibly stressed and heartbroken. This is supposed to be an exciting time, but it's just dreadful because of all of this. Any thoughts? Please be brutally honest, especially if I could have proceeded differently with this. Edit. The main issue is that he hasn't proposed. If he had concerns about a marriage or wasn't ready, he needs to tell me. But he either hasn't told me, or whenever I've asked, he brushes it off and says he wants to marry me. The main issue is his consistency. He says one thing, but doesn't demonstrate it through actions. I've had conversations with him about this, and he just says he'll try to do better. As far as the video games and sports go, I really try not to be nitpicky or controlling about what he does in his spare time or how much of it he does. I've been gaslit and hurt in previous relationships for being too controlling, so I try to be extra conscientious of that. I'm supportive of him hanging out with the boys, try to get to know them as well. Although these things aren't my go-tos, I try to watch sporting events with him and play video games with him to try to understand the hype. Update. Holy cow, y'all. It took me 4 months, but I did it. I ended it. Over the last 4 months, all our relationship has been is just talks of either marriage, engagement, or taking me out on a date, when he never actually does the things he says he'll do. Whenever I wanted to have a conversation about serious stuff, like where to live, finances, having kids, etc., he brushed it off like it was nothing. This was how I knew he was not planning for the future. Apparently, his parents know more about his financial situation than I do. I approached them about it, and they showed me how many loans he has. It was astronomical, and he hasn't paid a dime since he graduated from college 4 years ago. And he has zero expenses, nothing. This made me upset because not only did I have expenses, but I was working insane hours to pay for school and for my expenses. And he didn't make any attempts to have a stable, consistent job over the summer. At that point, I was done. It took a lot of courage to leave, especially considering the problems I have with his mom. I thought she'd go off on me for dumping her baby, but I finally did it this past weekend. Darn, did I dodge a bullet. The whole conversation was horrible. I felt like I was witnessing a toddler throwing a tantrum. He was crying, pacing, throwing stuff that I bought him, etc. He accused me of cheating when I told him the long-distance thing was affecting my feelings for him. He tried to bribe me with stuff to stay with him, like a Nintendo Switch. He guilted me for all the dates he took me on over the summer and in college years ago. Keep in mind, I was paying for undergrad and graduate school out of pocket and had no money. He accused me of never wanting him to be happy. The worst part, when I told his mom we broke up, it was essentially a "don't let the door hit you on the way out" kind of thing. She basically said, "Sorry y'all broke up. Have a good life. Sayonara, Sammy." To be honest, I was hoping she'd yell at me or go off on me, just so I could see her stick up for him a little bit. Just to show me that she truly cares about his well-being and not just her own for whenever he decided to leave her. I'm sad and extremely anxious because I left something that was comfortable and don't know what the future brings. I hated hurting him, but he has also inflicted a lot of pain and doubts into my mind. My fiancé only realized that he couldn't find his passport the night before our honeymoon, and now we can't go. Context: a family member gifted this trip to us for our wedding. It's the only nice thing we're doing for the occasion because otherwise we're going to just go to the city hall and have dinner with family. After this year's ongoing strike and a bad financial year before that, I've been the sole breadwinner, and while he's been very helpful around the house, it's starting to breed resentment and fear in me. I'm so nervous that this event will only be gasoline on that fire. Could you please give me some perspective, Reddit? My fiancé is so kind and we get along so well and I love him dearly, but these lapses in judgment are beginning to grind me down. This was the kind of trip that we'll never be able to afford on our own, so I'm feeling this hard. Update. Thank you to those of you who called him irresponsible because you're really appealing to the anger in me right now. I wrote this post in the middle of the night as we were still looking for the passport. Hope remained that we might find it, but we didn't. It's the weekend, so there's no chance of getting it until Monday. We called one agency and they said they no longer do day of passports after lockdown, but there's a chance we might be able to get into the federal office on Monday or Tuesday. I honestly should have gone alone, but the one detail I left out above is that his aunt and her family were also going on this trip, and I felt uncomfortable joining them without him. We'll update Reddit on whether or not I end up making it on Tuesday. I'm still really emotional, and I'm perhaps not acting too rationally right now. Update 2. After my therapy today, we continued to talk out some of the major themes of this mishap. His lack of preparation, how this ties into how hard it's been that he's not working. By the way, he does actually work and proactively looks for work. It's just that he's in a very difficult industry and there's some complexity that I won't go into. How I tend to imagine the worst possible outcome, and as many of you have pointed out, should continue to consider how making marriage work means working with each other's strengths and weaknesses. Also, want to call out that he has only traveled internationally as an adult once before, so there was a certain amount of ignorance that's forgivable on his end. Plus, we're both neurodivergent creative types, so this is the type of behavior I need to come to expect and decide if I can put up with. I think I can. I just need to be more proactive about helping him in spots where he's weak versus judging him and testing him to see if he'll succeed. Since many have asked, yes, he did apologize and admit to his role in this situation. It's all his fault. He keeps assuring me that he'll make it up to me throughout the week. His aunt emailed and told us that it all worked out in the end. She gave the room to another family member, our flight was refunded, and she assured us that she'll reschedule the trip whenever we're ready. I am, however, punishing him by forcing him to allow me unlimited reign over the TV. BBC historical miniseries are on the slate for the rest of the weekend. I'm also trying to figure out if I should go back to work later this week or take all these days off. I hate to ask this, but are you sure it's not deliberate? My mom's last husband had such terrible luck with passports, including losing it while on holiday. Once he had got his hooks in properly, he literally shredded his passport in front of her to punish her so they couldn't go on a cruise that she had planned and paid for. In the end, I went with her instead. But anyway, under normal circumstances, if this happened to someone, they'd be frantic, mortified, hugely apologetic for ruining your chance at a lovely trip. Was he any of those things? Go on your own and have a nice relaxing time. Tell him to sort himself out and start taking some responsibility in the relationship, and tell him he needs to go back to work. Am I the jerk for saying I would never have chosen my husband as the father of my baby? I, 37 female, and my husband, Liam, 30 male, have 2 kids. I'm currently pregnant with our third and last. Liam is a wonderful husband and a fantastic father. I was out at brunch with a few friends of mine. I was telling them a funny story about my cravings and how Liam had made a cake from scratch for it. A friend of a friend, Paige, said that I chose so well and that she should have put as much thought as I did into choosing him. I have a reputation for being really thorough and thinking things out before doing anything, the responsible one. I told her that I never would have chosen Liam to be the father of our first, but I am so grateful he was. I was very lucky. Our pre-marriage life was messy. I was with another man, Dave. Dave was a steady, reliable man, and we had been together for years. Dave made a new friend who was Liam, and I could not help but absolutely despise him. According to him, Liam made Dave feel young again, and he was desperate to reclaim the sense of youth he lost by being responsible since he was young. He spent all of his time with Liam and other bros. Dave would spend every night out partying until 2 or 3 a.m. He spent his entire paycheck and some of my paychecks on wrestling videos and online gambling. He bought a motorcycle. He used our savings to buy crypto. He shaved his head bald. The last straw was him spending $20,000 of my savings to travel. Throughout this, Liam was incredibly disrespectful to me. Dave broke up with me when I asked him to stop hanging out with Liam and his other friends. He immediately moved in with a girl I had concerns about. I felt deeply hurt, and for the first time in my life, I felt like hurting someone in return. I was miserable, out of my mind, and called Liam over. I wanted to ruin their friendship like he ruined my relationship. He was annoyed at Dave for something else and was down for anything. I woke up the next morning realizing that I made a huge mistake, but it was incredible. Unfortunately, my bad decision caught up to me and I got pregnant. Ironic since I had always wanted to have kids, but I was told that I was infertile. Both Liam and I were against kids out of wedlock, and we had a small wedding. I was ready to grit my teeth and make the best of our marriage, but surprisingly, Liam turned out to be an incredible partner and father. If it was a mistake, it was the best mistake of my life. Paige was very offended that I said Liam wouldn't have been my choice initially. She said I was making myself superior. She said that she lost respect for me and would never talk to me again. She also messaged Liam to tell him what I said. Was what I said really that bad? Edit. I should probably be clear, but I'm a lot more unfiltered on Reddit than here. I just said that while we knew each other before, Liam was basically a one-night thing, which is true. My other friends know the truth because a few of them were there when it all unfolded. Dave was furious at first, which is understandable, but we are cordial to each other. I did not get my money back, unfortunately. Not the jerk. I'd imagine Liam feels the same. This is a wild story, but the best part is that it worked out for you guys. Lose Paige as a friend. That's a weird response she had, in my opinion. Father covers for his new wife is surprised when I cut him out of my life. Recently, I've come to learn that T, my stepmother, has only been around 8 years and whom I don't care for, stole $768 from me, 32 male. When I spoke to my father, all he could do was complain about how many problems this is causing him, the stress on his heart, and how it's damaging his relationship. He didn't apologize for what she did, he just made the phone call about himself. For a phone call that lasted an hour and a half, I probably spoke for 15 minutes or less. I told him we could talk about it when I get there and figure something out. He then suggested flat out that I can help him work to make back the money. Yes, sure, let me perform physical labor to earn the money that your wife stole from me and pocket you another $900. That sounds great. I was coming in from out of state for a different reason and already planning on staying at the house. This is my childhood home, with my room still furnished how I left it, like my clothes are still on the dresser for when I visit. Plane tickets purchased, and I send him the confirmation date. The next day, he texts me back that I'm no longer welcome at his house, that it's time I grow up and seek healthcare somewhere else, and that he just needs to know where to send the money. This throws all of my appointments into the void, and I had to cancel and rebuy plane tickets because of it, and now I'm staying with other family. I know he did it to protect my stepmother from the confrontation of facing me in person. She crumbles to dust if people raise their voices around her. For reference, this woman is in such need of therapy that I cleaned and rearranged the kitchen one morning and T started crying and claimed that I was kicking her out of the house by making it not hers. All I did was do dishes and organize and clean the spice cabinet and pantry. He keeps saying that it's for his health, that I'm not there, and that it's too much stress. I have my own money and transportation and provide my own food. The duration of the trip was 2 weeks. I block him and my stepmother on everything. I ask my family to no longer speak to my dad about me. This is all after a lifetime of mistreatment and narcissistic BS from my dad. Now I hear through the grapevine that he's shocked, just couldn't believe I'd do this to him. My sibling already no longer speaks to him because of similar things, and him telling my brother to grow up and quit being a wimp after my sibling set a boundary with him. I had warned him before that if he kept up in his ways, he'd have no one to take care of him when he's older, and he didn't listen. If that wasn't enough, my late mom's last words to him were, "Don't let the family fall apart." Way to go, Dad. My Karen daughter demands my $2,000 mattress. My partner, 59 male, and I, 53 female, have a 4-bedroom house, and one of his kids, 25-year-old daughter, is still living at home. She's about to move out, and she's been searching for nearby apartments. While she's been looking at unfurnished options, since there aren't any furnished apartments available, we haven't had any discussion about what items she might take from the house. Recently, she applied for an apartment she thought would work for her. On the way back home, she brought up the idea of taking some things from the bedroom upstairs, including a very expensive mattress that was a gift from someone my partner used to work for. She's hesitant to buy a new mattress because she's uncertain about her plans for the coming year. I initially declined her request, explaining that moving such a large and valuable mattress up and down the stairs could damage it. I suggested an alternative mattress from a different bed, which would be easier to move, but she found it uncomfortable. I must admit, it's not in the best condition, as she has used it for several years. To find a compromise, I proposed buying a new mattress that she could use for her new place. If she decides she doesn't want it later, we could use it as a replacement for the uncomfortable one. Or if she decides to keep it, she could purchase it from us. I even mentioned that I'd probably waive the cost if it came down to that, but I wanted to set realistic expectations. However, she remains insistent on having the expensive mattress and doesn't understand why I won't just give it to her. Am I being unreasonable for wanting to keep a nice mattress for our spare bed? She was offered a new mattress at the inn for free and refused because she wants the expensive one. Not the jerk. I don't agree with all the comments saying she should have let her have the mattress. If it was my expensive mattress and my daughter asked for it, then I'd probably say no as well, and I'm very generous with my daughter. OP has offered to pay for a decent mattress for her. It's not like she's refusing to help at all. The only difference I'd make here would be that I'd say I'd gift her the new one. Not the jerk. So you'd rather have the nice mattress in an empty room that someone may stay in every once in a while than your stepdaughter who's starting her adult life and would be benefiting from it daily? You're the jerk. If nobody's using it and the daughter has been, it's her bed. Why would you not let her take it? The excuse that it might get damaged is absurd. This isn't about being entitled. When all 3 of my kids moved out, they took whatever they wanted from their rooms. I wonder what your response would be if she were your daughter and not your stepdaughter. My husband is angry that I won't give him my student loan refund to help with bills. I'm a stay-at-home mom and receive $500 bi-weekly from my husband's paychecks to pay for things like our son's preschool, gas for the car, groceries, things the kids need, etc. My husband makes somewhere around $4,500 per month, but I'm not sure because he won't tell me for sure what he brings in. I'm in school, and for the last 2 years, I've been maxing out my student loans so that I can supplement my income, because what I get from my husband is not enough to last the month. I do not ask my husband for additional money. I do not use any of his credit cards, and I very minimally use Amazon or shop online. My husband knows that I have to supplement with my student loan refunds and will occasionally ask me if I need him to give me more money, but I always tell him no, things are tight, but I make it work. We're in the process of switching over our medical insurance to my husband's work insurance, which will cost more than what we currently pay. My husband told me yesterday that he thinks it would be a good idea to give him my student loan refund so he can use it on bills for the rest of the year until I get another check. I didn't respond to him out of shock. He brought it up again later, and I told him that I didn't feel that I could talk about it right then because I didn't want to end up in a fight. He kept pushing me about it, and I told him that I wasn't going to give him the money. He got angry, and he's now ignoring me. The reason I don't want to give him the money is because I know it won't go to bills. He has packages coming in the mail from all sorts of websites almost every day. He spent almost $900 on Amazon in the span of 30 days. He gets fast food all the time. Anytime I ever try to talk to him about this spending, he tells me that he busts his butt for that money, and since he knows how much money we have, it isn't any of my business what he buys. He told me if I don't give him the money, he's going to lower the amount he gives me from his paychecks. He doesn't give me access to any of the online banking at all, but one bank account is solely in his name. I also have no idea what any of our bills are. I'm not asking for financial advice. I know our marriage isn't healthy, and we've discussed divorcing recently. When we discuss divorce, he gets angry. He cuts off the direct deposits, shuts my phone off, takes the car, and more until I tell him sorry and that I won't divorce him. I don't think that I'm wrong for saying no until he stops his excessive spending. ETA. I was able to access his email via his iPad. All apps are locked down with his fingerprint, so I can't check banking apps and things like that. I've gathered that he has at least 8 credit cards. Only 2 of those cards show me the remaining balances on them. Between those 2 cards, it's $13,000. I was also able to see our mortgage and monthly bill amounts. I can also see some of the banking statements emails from different accounts that he has. I can see 4 different bank accounts, but I can't access the actual statements without the passwords. I've made notes of all of this. From what I can see about our monthly bills, the total is about $2,000. This doesn't include the payments that he's making on the credit cards each month. I want to say thank you to so many kind commenters who are understanding of the position I've fallen into. Tomorrow I'll be going to the courthouse for divorce paperwork, and I will be figuring out the lawyer situation. See an attorney immediately. Never mention divorce again, and quietly plan your escape. Neighbor of property I work at tries to get free service. I own a small landscaping business with my husband. This morning, we showed up to our job with our truck and trailer for a day of weeding at a long-neglected property. It's trash day in the neighborhood, and in order to back the trailer in, I have to get out of the truck to move 2 garbage cans that are in the way. I move them both 1 foot off the road with the intention of moving them back afterwards. I assumed they were out in the road for visibility purposes. I then move to behind the trailer and guide my husband into the parking spot. It's very narrow. Husband gets out of the truck, and we both look at the ocean as the waves are massive due to the impending storm, at least 10 feet high. Surfers are wiping out all over the place, and it's quite a sight. I counted over 60 surfers on my lunch break. 10 seconds into looking at the ocean, the neighbor comes out screaming at us about how the garbage truck driver can't see the cans and asked what I was doing. When I say he was screaming, I mean he was screaming. This guy chose violence and was looking to intimidate. I calmly responded that I was about to move the cans back. I was just looking at the ocean first. He seemed slightly embarrassed and muttered something like, "I'll move them, don't bother." 1 hour later, this guy catches my husband going to the truck and asks if he can put his lawn clippings in our trailer and take them to the dump with our other debris. No apology, no introductions, and like nothing had happened. My husband was taken aback in the moment and said yes, even though this is something we charge for. 30 minutes after that, he walks onto the property we're working at and says that he just pruned a juniper and asks if he can put those clippings in there too. I respond, "Sure, if you throw us a 20. He laughs and says, "Are you kidding? You're going to the dump anyway, right?" To which I respond, "Yes, and not only do they charge us by weight, but this is our job, and taking debris to the dump is a service we offer. We'll do it for 20. He laughs again and says, "They charge by weight? My debris weighs nothing." He huffs off and comes back with the $20. He was so mad, he wouldn't even look at me when he handed me the money. My guess, he thought we'd just say yes, and he'd already cut the juniper before asking. Then didn't have a way of getting rid of it. Couldn't put it in one of his 2 BMWs and didn't want it laying around his $4 million beach house. Another short while later, he catches my husband and tries to find out which dump we go to, because the one he suspects we go to doesn't charge by weight. Wrong dump. And also, it doesn't matter. We charge what we charge. My guy, you don't have to say yes to us taking your debris. We decide our rates, and this is what we charge. Take it or leave it. You came to us. We're not going door to door asking for people's yard clippings. There's a minimum charge of $25 at the dump, no matter how much you have. Just save the $5 and the trip to the dump and leave us alone. Give me a parking ticket for a spot I paid for? I dare you. About 10 or so years ago, I went to a concert an hour away from me in Indianapolis. Decided to make a day of it, going to several museums and spots around the city. Each time paying for parking in a garage for 2 or so hours, then going to meander around the area. Finally, I go park close to the venue and paid for parking until the time it was free. In total, I probably paid $40 to $50 for parking throughout the day. Enjoyed the concert, but come back to a parking ticket on my car. I think this is odd, but I'm tired and chalk it up to a mistake. But I decide to take photos of my parking spot. Both spots on either side were taken, and all the signage, and head home for the evening, figuring I would sort it out in the morning. The next morning, I review the ticket. The photo of my spot and my parking receipt. The ticket did not line up to the spot my car was located in, and my receipt shows that I had valid parking at the time of the ticket. So I submit an appeal thinking this will be easy. It's obviously a mistake. The appeal was denied. The ticket was for the spot that was not paid for. Ergo it stood. I called the office and the lady said they did not make a mistake, as my receipt showed that I paid for spot X1 and the ticket was for spot X. I asked about the photo proof that my car was in spot X1. She said, "Well, you could have moved the car." Note that the parking receipt included my license plate number and everything. I noticed that there were cars in spots on either side of me and that the entire street was full because of the concert. And honestly, I don't think they bothered to look at the photo. Even had that not been the case, I had proof that my license plate had a paid parking spot. No matter what, no dice. I'm feeling petty over this $25 parking ticket at this point, so I called Visa and asked if I could retract the amount I paid for the time that I had parked since it didn't count. I submitted all the evidence and documentation to Visa. Visa, and what was the greatest thing Visa has ever done in my opinion, they agreed that if my parking receipt and transaction number wasn't proof I had paid for parking, then clearly I had paid for a service I did not receive, and they extended my initial request of canceling the one transaction to include all of the parking spots I had paid for throughout the system that day, valued at more than the parking ticket. Then they filed a formal complaint on my behalf with a letter explaining why they were refunding me. It would not have been nearly as satisfying if I had not spent the entire day playing tourist in the city and racking up a large parking bill all with the same vendor. Being complicated isn't cute or funny, it's straight up annoying. I had a group of 3 come in, older ladies, maybe in their 60s. I greeted them and asked what they wanted to drink, put in apps, and everything seemed to go well. Then I get their food order. First lady orders something regular. Second asks for a change on the kind of waffle she was having, no problem. The third, she asked me if she could make her own omelet. Her friends were already joking about how she's difficult and she can't even order off fast food menus without changing something. I laughed and told her no, that she had to pick one of the 3, cheese, veggie, or seafood, and she could add a breakfast meat or something. She quickly corrected me and said that that was the same thing. She proceeded to ask for a veggie, no onions, bell peppers, or tomatoes, leaving her with just spinach, and then tells me to add bacon and pico. I told her pico had tomatoes and onions and asked was she sure. She said she just didn't want it too tomatoey or oniony and that pico was fine. I said okay and put it in. She kept making jokes about how she's picky and this is typical of her and she's so quirky. They proceed to run me around. Napkins, a new drink, want to change drink, second person now wants to change drink, salt and pepper before food arrives, etc. And then when I finally get them settled, their food comes out. They ask me for a pat of butter, salsa, salt and pepper. Yes, again, they told me they were done. And some pancake syrup. In the midst of getting all these things, fourth person shows up and I asked what she wanted to drink. She tells me her friends need pancake syrup. I said I was already going to get it, but I was just trying to get her something to drink. She gives me her drink order with an attitude. They then have a 5th friend show up. They asked to put tables together and we said no, but offered a 5-top instead. When the woman gets there, they try to pull up a chair, even though we already told them they'd have to move. They begrudgingly move and leave their old table in a mess, which I go to clean right as the 5th person sits down. As soon as she sits, her friend calls me and says she's ready to order. With dishes clearly in my hand, I tell her to give me a minute. I come back, ask her what she wants to drink, and she says, "No, I'm ready to order." I said, "Well, I need to ring in your drink too, so will you tell me what you want to drink and then what you want to eat?" She gives in. I go to check on her after she gets her food and say, "Did you get everything? Does it look all right?" She gestures to the food and rolls her eyes. This entire time, they're joking about how they are all difficult and picky, especially the omelet lady. When it was time to pay, the 5th lady paid for everyone and left a $3 tip on $97 bill. Worst part is, they caught my manager and asked was I new because they felt like they had to ask for everything. I wanted to scream. The only reason why you had to ask was A, you kept changing your drink and adding people, and B, because you never let me get a chance to grab it. It's not cute to go out and be difficult or purposefully picky. I have no issue with accommodation, but it truly felt like a game to them, and it was so frustrating. Management was not ready for my compliance. About 20 years ago, I worked in a call center at a budding payment processing company. The main performance metric was the time service factor, TSF, which required answering 80% of calls within 20 seconds. Due to a constant queue of calls, achieving this goal was impossible. Customers were unhappy, management was unhappy, the stage was set. Enter tech support. I was hired fresh out of high school to be the call center's sole tech support and handle customer-facing application migrations. In retrospect, they basically brought me on as a project manager and systems consultant, but I didn't know any better. Unfortunately, our telephone system did not direct callers based on specialization and skill sets, so when customers called in specifically for tech support, there was a 1 in 15 chance of getting the lone tech support agent. Instead of investing in more tech support staff and overhauling the phone system, management decided the best system was to have representatives physically line up at my desk. It was frustrating and extremely overwhelming to balance my migration projects and the queue of callers that were waiting for me. So I adapted by remaining in not ready as much as possible. Not ready means your line will only ring for direct calls, but only my team had direct line. Things were going smoother in terms of handling tech calls. People were lining up less, but management was not happy that the TSF goal was not being met. Then one day, my lead pulled me aside and confronted me with my telephone stats. My not ready times were 10x everyone else's, to which I reminded them that I'm the only technician, and if 14 other people were lined up at my cubicle, then they're clogging the lines with people on hold waiting for me. Management did not care. I had a special skill, but I was not special enough to be exempt from the metric. No more not ready. Cue malicious compliance. I pretended my not ready button no longer existed and went about being a rank and file call center rep. The moment I was done with one call, I had to pick up the next. This meant during migration waves and outages, there were moments where my entire team was lined up at my desk waiting to transfer their callers to me. After about 10 to 15 minutes of just seething by my cubicle's window, some began to confront me. I explained that I was forbidden from using not ready to keep my line open. The call queue would have to die down completely until my line was open to accept a transfer call. You could cut the tension with a knife. TSF continued to tank, then call abandon rates skyrocketed. Customers were unhappy, management was unhappy. So management did the obvious thing and hired more technicians, right? Nope. First, the new protocol was to post a sticky note with the customer's callback number and ticket number on my desk. Tell the customer to expect my callback, hang up, then take the next call. From then on, I was expressly only allowed to conduct the callbacks when there were fewer than 10 callers on hold. Second, they took 2 of the regular call center boomers and sat them with me to job shadow. Third, they tasked my lead with standing over my shoulder to observe my daily activities. What I showed the team lead was that for every 2 to 3 tickets I closed out, 10 more callback tickets would roll in. What he actually ended up doing was reprimanding me for having a high RONA, rollover not answered, count, because I'd let some calls roll over if they snuck in while I was doing morning callbacks. The nightmare finally ended with the mortgage crisis. Management's brilliant business ideas had led the company to insolvency. I jumped ship to complete my college education, then the company shut down about a year later. Would I be the jerk to not let my best friend move in with me after she, her boyfriend, and 4 kids got evicted? I'm 42. My BFF, who's 41, lives with her boyfriend and her 4 kids, who are 20, 17, 13, and 6, in a small 3-bedroom house. Her boyfriend is rather lazy and does the bare minimum, basically works 30 hours a week and sleeps or plays on his phone the rest of the time. Any home or car maintenance is usually done by myself or my husband. My BFF also works about 30 hours a week, but does all the housework and childcare. They were both laid off during lockdown and didn't pay any rent or put anything aside from stimulus money. Rather, they spent it on frivolous items. Well, once things started getting back to normal again, they started paying rent, but kind of ignored the 16 months they didn't pay. Again, spending whatever extra they had on unnecessary stuff. Well, she recently got a letter of eviction, giving her until the 15th of next month to vacate. Both my husband and myself have encouraged her to talk with landlord, seek help from family, talk with the county, and even talk to legal aid. She has done none of this and instead decided to drink and bury her head in the sand. Now she has mentioned moving in with me and my family, my husband, our daughter, and our son. As much as I'd love to help her out, I just can't. I'm a neat freak. She's not. My kids attend school regularly. Hers miss a lot. My 17-year-old works a lot on top of school. Her 20-year-old lays in bed all day doing nothing but smoking and having guys over. Lastly, she has lots of pets, and I mean lots. 13 dogs and 14 cats. I have my own hobby farm, but they are well kept after and cleaned up after. Hers are not as much, and there's often messes around her house. So would I be the jerk to leave her, her family, and her pets to be homeless? I've offered to go with her to talk to organizations, but again, she's just ignoring it all. Wow, not the jerk. It's hard to see a scenario where your BFF is not trying to take advantage of you. Her life seems to be a mess of her own making, and she's not doing anything to make her situation better except asking others for freebies. For better or worse, I commend you for sticking by your BFF for as long as you have. Not the jerk. She's deeply irresponsible, and it shouldn't be you who deals with those consequences. She has options, she's just choosing the easiest one for her. Even just the humans moving in would be insane, and I want to bet you'd end up doing the chores along with your husband without help from anyone else. Also, 13 dogs and 14 cats in a small apartment? That's insane. You can't let this person encroach in your life any more than she already has. Her suggestion to move in with you under this circumstance, when it's not even the last resort, is selfish. Am I the jerk for literally showing my dad how he behaves every day when he gets home from work? I'm 16, female. My father, who's 46, is the breadwinner, while my mom is a stay-at-home mom. She handles everything around the house, like cooking, mopping, washing, laundry, etc. I'm the oldest and I try to help, but really there's only so much I can do while my dad just gets home at the end of the day and literally complains about everything, like how the carpet isn't clean or how the food is cold. As a result, I'd have to listen to a huge argument daily between him and mom. It's exhausting, but honestly, I think that my dad is in the wrong here. I tried talking to him to get him to see how his behavior is, but to no avail. So what I did was pick a day off for him and pretended to act like him. I put together an outfit that looked like a suit and put black tape over my lips to look like a mustache. At 6 p.m., I went inside the house, shouted, "I'm home!" then sat next to him in the living room and started kicking my shoes off while complaining about the state of the house at the top of my lungs. He glanced at me, confused, asking what I was doing. I ignored him, then started yelling about the carpet being dirty, shower not ready, the kids needing to be quiet, and so on. He kept staring while mom and my siblings laughed. My younger brother kept pointing towards me, saying, "This is Daddy." I then proceeded to yell about dinner, then went off on my mom for not preparing it before time. My dad stopped me and in a serious tone asked what I was doing. I turned to him and said, "What? Can't a man rest after working long hours?" in the most macho voice I could muster. My dad got the hint because this was the common phrase he uses daily. He went quiet and avoided looking at me. I stopped the act and told him I was just trying to show him what he's like every day when he comes home from work. He said nothing, just went outside and refused to speak to me. Later, he went on about how I mocked and invalidated him, that he does work hard, and me doing this was disrespectful and invalidating. Mom said it was funny, but also thought I hurt my dad's feelings, and I could have gotten the message across some other way instead. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. You held up a mirror to his behavior and he didn't like what he saw. That's on him. I hope he gets the message. Not the jerk, first off, but I think you have a good chance here. Listen, please. You can acknowledge, "Hey Dad, I know that probably did hurt your feelings and I'm sorry. Of course you work hard and provide for us and we appreciate it, but I want you to see that your behavior hurts Mom's feelings. It hurts the family." The fact he went quiet instead of exploding in anger, to me says there's hope. Like many dudes his age, he struggles to process those emotions, but he recognized he was feeling more embarrassed and hurt than angry, it seems. The key is to understand and withhold judgment, to recenter the convo on not just his pain, but everyone's feeling pain and moving forward. That's tough, and you're a kid. It's not your responsibility to do it. You would be morally justified to say buzz off, but I always ask, do you want to win or be right? Being right often feels hollow. I hope you win. I just want to hop onto this excellent comment to add that I would also recommend you having a private chat with your mom. Explain to her that me acting like Dad wasn't just about pointing out his bad behavior towards you. I also wanted to point out how your marriage affects the whole family. The daily fights and Dad's yelling affects everyone. We all feel it when it gets to the time Dad is due home and we prepare to listen to our dad to be mean to our mom. It affects all of us knowing our dad doesn't respect our mom. Every day we all watch your hard work. We've started trying to help you out because we know our dad doesn't appreciate or respect the hard work you do. It's so bad that younger brother recognized I was pretending to be Dad so quickly Yet Dad didn't know what I was doing until the last minute. But what affects me the most is knowing that despite all this, you always put Dad's feelings first, before your own and before everyone else's. Even now, you're more concerned with how what I did hurt Dad's feelings than you're concerned by how Dad's behavior affects the rest of the family. Brother strongly associates that behavior with Dad, while Dad apparently has no idea he behaves like this, and your priority is me apologizing to Dad, not changing this dynamic between you and Dad, or asking Dad to apologize to us for making our atmosphere at home so awful every time he comes home from work. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or Dad? Please let us know. Company did over long-term employees, and my boss' act of revenge helped me start a company for pennies on the dollar. For legal reasons, I can't disclose the exact location, purely because the team I worked with were cool guys and our boss did over corporate really hard without them noticing. This took place in 2012. Part 1. The Fire Marshal. I worked at a smaller chain electronics store that sold top-of-the-line video cameras, PCs, cell phones, photo cameras, and this new thing called 4K televisions. For context, we were located at an expensive outlet mall. We were literally the only electronics store in the mall and the only place for 50 miles that sold high-end electronics. Logic dictates that this in itself would make our location prime real estate and we would have record sales every year. Spoiler alert, that's exactly what happened, and we basically did well 5 years in a row. Furthermore, I got hired because I came into the store looking for some video equipment. The store manager was caught off guard by my advanced technical knowledge of camera technology because I kept asking him specific technical questions on certain models. Note, this piece of information is relevant for the end of the story. So with that preamble out of the way, let's get into the heart of the story. While working the camera counter, the mall fire marshal came in and asked to see the store manager. Since I had no customers at that moment, I decided to take him to the back to meet my manager. This verbatim is what I can remember. Me: "Hey, the fire marshal's here." Manager: "Why?" Me: "Don't know. Want me to let him in your office?" Manager: "Sure, give me a moment." Marshal: "Okay, mall management wanted me to ask when you want me to bring in the construction foreman." Me: "What, are we building something?" Looking at my rather baffled boss. Manager: "No, I didn't ask for a construction foreman." Marshal: "Well, aren't you aware of the new, overpriced clothing store that's going to be built here?" At that exact moment, I and the store manager looked at each other, then looked at the fire marshal, who handed my manager the work order on the brand new, overpriced clothing store that was going to be built at our exact location, thus permanently ending the only high-end electronics store for miles around. Part 2. Money Talks. A few days later, the manager held a store meeting with me and the rest of the team. Prior to this meeting, the manager gave me permission to tell the rest of our 12-person team about the incident with the fire marshal. So the manager confronted corporate about what was going on, and after some skillful verbatim gymnastics, we got the whole story. Manager: "So I called corporate to ask what's happening, and I'll tell you straight. Overpriced clothing store has been trying for 10 years to get a spot at this outlet mall. They went to every store with a buyout offer for the storefront. The CEO of this electronic chain was approached by overpriced clothing store with a massive check in the millions to break our lease and hand over the storefront to them. We weren't supposed to know any of this. Corporate wanted us to be in the dark right up until the last day 2 weeks from today." Yep, everyone was upset. In fact, we were so angry that all of us did the absolute bare minimum. This included the manager. In 1 week, we tanked our own sales by 70%. Corporate freaked out and sent a hatchet man to talk to the store. This doofus was confused why we weren't giving it 110% and was surprised we got visibly angry when he informed us that we wouldn't be getting severance pay or a letter of recommendation. My manager very politely told him to leave and that he would take care of the situation himself. Part 3. Oops, my finger slipped. After the hatchet man was banished from our store, the manager took a close look at the management handbook and noticed a little snafu that was written in the book in regards to discretionary discounts. Mainly that the store manager has permission to discount any product in the store up to 90% off, and the offset of the cost will be absorbed at the end of the year discretionary cost analysis. Yes, you read that last sentence correctly, and the wonderful part of this story is that the store was being shut down by the end of February. So another store meeting was held. The manager told us that 2 days before our last day, we were having a secret 90% off sale just for the employees and their family. When I heard this, I asked the question everyone was thinking. Me. So let me get this straight. This includes every single item in this store? Manager. Yup. In fact, what you guys can do is pick out everything you want now and set up a little pile in the back room. Make sure you guys label everything, and I'll include the premium service warranties for free. Well, I decided to do some shopping. Newfangled 240Hz 4K TV, 4K camera system, 3 5-hour spare batteries, SD cards, microphones, laptops, drives, tripods, all kinds of stuff. But wait, there's more. The manager told me I could have any of the HDMI and mini DisplayPort cables that are currently attached to the showroom TV and computer displays. On the day of the secret 90% off sale, we all showed up 2 hours early from the back entrance and bought our items. With tax, I paid about $1,153 for about $13,000 worth of brand new electronics, and in essence, gave me the necessary tools to start my own media business. As one final forget you to corporate, the manager gave all of us a phone number to a caseworker at the local unemployment office who was very sympathetic to our case. Part 4. I've never seen this man before in my life. Well, flash forward to March 2013, and I'm carefully navigating my freelance media company into a nice stream of steady work. I get an unknown phone call from a law firm representing the electronics company. Apparently, $400,000 worth of electronics were mistakenly sold at a 90% discount, and they wanted to know if I had any information on where I could find my manager. The following conversation is what I can recall to the best of my memory. Me. May I ask why you need to know this information? Law firm. Well, we believe that he woefully misused his discount privileges. Me. Okay, but could you answer a question for me first? Law firm. Sure. Me. Why did your client, the CEO of an electronic chain, take a multi-million-dollar check to break a lease on his own business and not properly inform the store staff of its impending closure? Dead silence. Me. Hello? Law firm. Sorry to bother you, sir. And that was it. The moral of the story, don't do over your employees. P.S. Boss, if you're reading this, take comfort in the fact that none of us have sold you out, and I hope you're living a wondrous life. Am I the jerk for refusing to take my daughter to my ex-husband's wedding? I'm 42, female. My ex-husband, who's 45, and I were together for 20 years. We had a beautiful daughter together, Jocelyn, who's 14. We got a divorce 5 years ago due to infidelity on his part. I was devastated. He was the love of my life, and he betrayed all of the trust and loyalty we had built up. To make matters worse, he ended up in a relationship with the woman he cheated on me with. They got engaged 1 year later and are set to be married in 2 weeks. Honestly, I still am heartbroken over my divorce. It's hurtful to me that we were together for 20 years and he could just go fall in love with someone else, as if I was nothing. However, Jocelyn was only 9 when we divorced, and he's a great father, so I would never want to come between their bond. Jocelyn loves his fiancée, as she's very sweet to her, but she doesn't know the reason why her dad and I divorced. I want to tell her when she's a bit older, and he doesn't want to tell her at all. Anyways, I compromised with him that Jocelyn could come to the wedding, but that he would have to provide the transportation to and from the wedding, as I want no part of it. I don't want to drop my daughter off at his wedding. I don't want to see all the decorations and the happy guests. It would just be too much for me. I didn't tell him all of that, obviously, but he agreed. Today he calls me and asks if he can ask for a huge favor. It turns out that his future in-laws are flying in the morning of the wedding and he has to go pick them up. Therefore, he can't pick up my daughter the day of and wanted to ask if I could take her. I said absolutely not and asked why he can't pick her up the day before when she gets off of school. He said he doesn't want to make the drive twice and then he will likely not have time as he has to prepare for the rehearsal dinner. I asked why can't the bride pick up her parents, and he said she'll be getting her hair done and won't be able to. I laughed and told him there was no way I'd take my daughter and that he'd have to figure it out. Boy, why did I say that? My daughter ran downstairs crying. Her face was red 10 minutes after my conversation with her dad, calling me terrible and accusing me of not wanting her to spend time with her dad. I told her that's not the case, and she demanded to know why I couldn't take her. I couldn't give her an answer, and she ran upstairs crying. Now I'm getting messages from his family calling me heartless and cold and a jerk for trying to ruin his special day over a relationship that is long over. My family understands my point of view, but I feel terrible that I've upset my daughter. I don't know what to do. Am I the jerk? Should I just put aside my feelings and take her? Not the jerk, but I also think your daughter is old enough to know the truth about her father. Otherwise, you will be the bad guy going forward. Not the jerk. The people he needs to pick up can get a taxi. His first responsibility should be his daughter, if he actually wants her there. And I think it might be time to tell your daughter a bit more about what happened. She's a teenager now and needs to be learning lessons about loyalty and managing relationships responsibly. Her getting the impression that this situation is all right and that you're wrong for not being happy that the ex-husband who cheated on you is getting remarried is not a good place for her to start when it comes to learning how to expect good treatment from future partners. If he thinks picking up his future in-laws is more important than picking up his own daughter, then he's very, very wrong. The adult in-laws can manage a variety of transportation options. A young teenager can't. He's showing his priorities, and it isn't his daughter, and you need to be prepared to help protect her and guide her as he continues into the future, wanting to play happy family and have his daughter go along with it while he puts her in second place to his new family. Not the jerk, but 14 is old enough to understand cheating. I would tell darling daughter that while I love her, and I love that she has a good relationship with her dad and her future stepmom, I can't handle seeing their wedding when they started dating while dad and I were still married. Then I would ask her if she has any idea as to how she can be at the wedding without me having to see it. Sometimes teenagers are incredible out-of-the-box thinkers. Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or is her ex-husband? Please let us know. He's showing where his priorities lie, bruh. You should be putting your daughter first, my dude. My Karen niece demands I pay the down payment on a house that she wants. Not gonna happen, Karen. I'm male, 54. My niece, Sierra, who's 25, is an only child and she just got married about 3 months ago. My sister, who's 58, admitted to me that she and her husband paid over $35,000 for her wedding at a venue on the coast. They had to dip in their home equity for most of that money. My wife, who's 53, and I make significantly more money than my sister and her husband, but we live well within our means. We do splurge on once-a-year vacations, and we paid for our kids' educations, but that's it. We even cap how much we're allowed to spend on each other for our birthdays or Christmas, etc. When our kids, who are 30, 28, and 24, got engaged, we offered to either pay for their dream wedding or host their wedding at my parents' lake house and gift them the balance of a down payment on their homes. About the lake house, my parents are deceased. My sister and I own it, renting it out most of the time and splitting the money. It's more than maintenance costs, but not that much more. All 3 of our kids took us up on the offer, so all 3 are homeowners. This kind of nuked our accrued savings for a bit, but we've built back up a sizable amount since then, and we're glad to help our kids get a solid financial base in life. My sister told me she offered the same deal to Sierra, but Sierra wanted her dream wedding instead. I thought she was crazy, but she's not my daughter, so it's none of my business. Well, it became my business. Apparently, Sierra's been stewing over the last couple of months after my daughter and her husband hosted their first family 4th of July at their new home. It's not new, it was built over 40 years ago, but it is solid, has lots of room, a huge backyard, and my son-in-law has been working overtime with very impressive do-it-yourself projects. My sister told me Sierra had asked them for a down payment so they could get a house too. After paying Sierra's college tuition and expenses and her wedding, they're tapped out. I had a feeling Sierra would show up on my doorstep, and that's exactly what she did. Sierra and her husband showed up with a cake. My wife loves cake. She told us about their honeymoon, how she loves being married, and how much she looks forward to giving us grandnieces and grandnephews. The whole time, her husband is looking more and more uncomfortable. As soon as Sierra said, "I just wish we could buy a house like my cousins," I just shook my head and said, "No, Sierra, we're not giving you the down payment." She just froze for a moment, then asked me why not. We had the money, and we could even make it a loan, and they can pay us back if we wanted. I told her I don't loan money to family members. If I put money in a family member's hand, it's a gift. Life is just easier that way. I reminded Sierra that my kids have homes because instead of blowing $35,000 on a dream wedding, they spent far less to get married at their grandparents' lake house, so the money they would have spent went to their down payment. I also reminded her that her mother offered her the same deal, but she refused it because she wanted her wedding to be, in her own words, better than theirs. Most importantly, I said that I'm not going to disrespect my own kids' wise financial decisions by rewarding her foolish decision. When she asked what was foolish, I said, All you were thinking about was the wedding. My kids were thinking about their marriages." Of course, this upset Sierra and she left in tears. Her husband apologized, but I'm not sure if it was because she was crying, they were leaving in such an awkward way, or if he thought Sierra was wrong. Anyway, my sister said that she agrees with me, but that I'm still a jerk because I was so blunt about it. I'll admit that I am blunt while my sister sugarcoats everything. My wife, my kids, and my brother-in-law, Sierra's father, are all in complete agreement, but the consensus does seem to be that it's not what I said, but how I said it. ETA, my kids joke that I'm as subtle as a sledgehammer. I guess that's why I'm here. Was I the jerk for being as blunt as I was? Not the jerk. You gave her a much-needed lesson in the consequences of choices. If you want to talk about jerk behavior, Sarah wanting to one-up your kids on the wedding and then use your money to pay for her petty move is the height of jerk behavior. She deserved every word you said and more. And nothing you said was rude. Blunt isn't necessarily rude. OP probably saved himself a lot of unnecessary begging by making his answer clear. With people like his niece, if you sugarcoat it, they take it as a sign that there's a space for negotiation, and then you're in for a world of awkwardness. Not the jerk. Like you said, she had a choice between a wedding and a house. She chose the wedding. A lot of people don't like it when you tell them the truth. In this case, she needs to be told the truth. You don't want her to think that she has any hope in the future to get money from you. To put it even more bluntly, no chance in heck. Well, what would you do if you were OP? Would you pay for your niece's down payment or not? Please let us know. If it weren't for these stories, I never would have had a clue how many people feel entitled to other people's money. Deny my ability to use my backyard when my dog is dying? Alright, you'll no longer be able to enjoy yours. A couple months ago, our lovely older pit bull was fighting cancer, and we had the painful decision made to have her put down. She was low on energy at this point, moving was difficult, and getting her to eat was near impossible. With that, one of the only things we wanted to give her was one last day outside in the backyard. So the day before she was to be put to sleep, in the early morning, I set out to set up a tent in the backyard and filled it inside and outside with things our dog absolutely loved. I noticed as I was setting things up, the neighbor behind us was placing sticks and leaves in their fire pit, which normally I wouldn't care at all, but the poor dog is having trouble breathing at this point. I figured it wouldn't be an imposition to let them know my current situation and ask if they could postpone the burning just for today. The wife let me know that they are just going to be burning a few things to clear their yard and it won't last very long at all, and she gave me some level of understanding about the dog. With that, she lit up the fire and the smoke billowed into my backyard. For some context, the neighbor is directly behind my property. I have about a 100 foot by 100 foot backyard, and theirs is about 50 foot by 100 foot. Just to add to this, I don't mind if people are burning things around me. I'm not particularly fond of it, but if it makes them happy, then it makes me happy. A few hours go by. I notice they're still outside, adding more things to the fire. I approach them and ask kindly on the ETA, trying to be as patient and understanding as possible. They say they're almost done. A few hours later, there's a raging fire outside, and I can visibly see the husband outside pointing at my home, yelling, and then adding actual campfire logs, no longer leaves and sticks. At this moment, I'm not angry, I'm just very sad. Poor dog isn't going to have the last day we wanted to give her. We would take her somewhere else, but we don't want to stress her out, so we spend the rest of the day inside. Later that night, around 9 p.m., as the sun is setting, I go out for a walk, and I notice the fire is still roaring. Mind you, as it was most of the time, with no one there. At this moment, I'm now ticked off and starting to look into state laws, city laws, and everything in between. From this, I found out that my city has an ordinance that clearly states that a fire pit cannot be within 50 feet of a structure. I could, if I wanted to, contact the city and have it stopped simply because no matter where they place it in their backyard, it will be within 50 feet of their home. But that seems non-permanent enough. I was already considering getting a fence installed and already had multiple quotes. It was hard to swallow a bill for $15,000, but within 24 hours of this situation, guess what I paid for? The fence will be installed within the next couple of weeks around the edge of my property, and their fire pit is no further away than 10 feet from my fence. Can't take a single day away from your fire pit for my dying dog? Well, enjoy never being able to use it again. My dad kicked me out as a teen, but I had the last laugh. When I was 17 years old, I would mostly just play World of Warcraft and do the bare minimum in high school. During my senior year, I had over 20 absences, most involved me skipping to play games. I lived in a rural farmhouse, so internet was expensive and unreliable. This is 2008. We were poor and didn't have internet, but my neighbor did, and unbeknownst to my dad, 46 male, and stepmom, 32 female, I set up a wireless extender, with that neighbor's permission so I could do homework. It just barely reached my bedroom and the back deck. I'd play games in my room on the internet all the time, and my parents didn't even realize I had internet. They just figured that World of Warcraft was another non-internet game, and I didn't enlighten them. As I got close to graduation, I did some self-reflection and decided to give video games up. I had given them up for an entire week and was so proud of myself that I decided to open up to my father and tell him about my progress. I told him that I had had internet for over 6 months and that it reached my bedroom. I didn't mention the extender. My dad was not pleased that I had been playing this many games under his nose. Up until then, he was a fairly absentee parent, but then he wanted to lay down the law, and he demanded to take permanent possession of my laptop so he could sell it and presumably cut me off of any future gaming. This felt unfair to me because the laptop was a gift from my grandmother and I couldn't afford to replace it. He also wanted to drive me to and from school, where I previously had a lot more freedom on a bike. I was almost 18 years old and felt like I had taken care of my own problems and didn't need this. I didn't give my dad the laptop. I had hidden it under one of my dad's broken cars. When it became clear I wouldn't surrender my laptop, my dad didn't take it well and lost it on me. I moved out to my friend's house a few farms over to finish high school. His parents were super supportive. They didn't like my dad much. I wasn't welcome back at my dad's house. On one occasion, when I saw my dad and stepmom's car gone, I snuck into the house to get my things. My stepmom had already packed up my room into neat boxes. Weirdly, I noticed that my dad's entire computer setup was on the house's back porch. He was using the internet. No doubt for videos that he was watching behind my stepmom's back. On my way out, I walked to the edge of the property where the wireless extender was and I took it with me. He didn't even know about it anyway. When I finally did talk to my dad 8 months later, he asked if I knew how to fix the internet. Am I the jerk for refusing to take down my Dodgers gear when I live in enemy territory? I'm a 4th-generation Angelino, Los Angeles native, and a die-hard Dodgers fan. I had to move out of state because my work moved its headquarters to Texas and because it was becoming too expensive to live in LA. I currently live in Houston. My wife and I hate it here. We regret it and we're looking to move soon. We still love LA, so we have reminders from home everywhere. I adore baseball, so my car has Dodgers stickers. I wear Dodgers shirts on the regular, and I have a Dodgers flag flying on the front lawn. My neighbors don't like it. Of course they don't, because it's Houston, so they're Astros fans. For those who don't know, the Houston baseball team, the Astros, cheated during the 2017 World Series and got away with it. So yeah, we get told to get over that year often. Recently, I got a letter from the HOA telling me to take down my flag because it's an eyesore. I say, no way, Jose, because there is nothing in the bylaws limiting what flags I can have up. Also, my neighbors have more offensive flags up, and I don't see anyone complaining about them. I threw the letter away, but we still got neighbors telling us to get over that game and to deal with it. As for me, my wife thinks we should take the flag down until we move, and is not happy when I told the obnoxious neighbor that we won our World Series title fair and square, unlike you guys. Am I the jerk? I don't think I am, but my wife does. Update. We moved back to Los Angeles over the summer. Things weren't as hard as my wife and I would have thought. We looked around online and recruited our family and friends to what we called Operation Get Out. The objective was to find an affordable place to go live and get out of here. Given everything going on over there, we didn't want to raise our daughters in Texas. Also, all of our family and friends were in California, and we wanted her to know her grandparents. With the help of my father-in-law, we bought a small house half an hour away from Los Angeles. It's a fixer-upper, but my wife has been loving the renovation project so far. We just finished the kitchen and the nursery. My wife can't wait to tackle the living area next year. I found a new job that lets me work from home a couple of days a week so I can stay with our girl. Speaking of our girl, she hadn't been born when I made my post. My wife and I took a baby moon trip to Mexico to enjoy our last vacation before she arrived. Only Hannah decided that she didn't want to be born in Texas and crashed the trip. I'm a little disappointed that we broke the cycle of the 5th generation born in LA, but Hannah is a healthy, strong girl, and that's more important. And we have an interesting story as to why our half-Asian daughter now has Mexican citizenship. Thanks for confirming that I'm not a jerk. Viva los Dodgers! Am I the jerk for not making an effort to increase my child support payments after coming into some money? I got divorced 5 years ago and I lost a lot. My ex got the apartment and our car. I was okay with it because she had our kids and I wanted everything to be as stable as possible for them. I ended up moving in with my grandmother to make ends meet. My ex and I were doing a decent job of being co-parents, I thought. I spent a lot of time with my kids and I've never missed a child support payment. My grandmother became ill during lockdown and I was basically her caregiver. She made it through, but it really took a toll on her. She passed about 2 months ago. I'm an only child, but my parents are both irresponsible, which is why they couldn't help me out when I needed somewhere to live. My grandmother made me her main beneficiary when she passed. All that she said was to take care of my kids. I sold her house after I gave everyone their bequests. I took the money and the rest of the estate, and I bought myself a house and a car. Her house was old and not in a great neighborhood for the kids. I also put money into my kids' educational fund. When my ex found out what I did, she was upset. She said that I owed her more child support now. I checked with my lawyer before I did anything. Money from an inheritance, the sale of a house, or a lottery win does not count as income. If I had invested the money instead, then the interest would count as income. She thinks I intentionally did her over. I think I now have a good reliable car for work and a nice small house in a good neighborhood for when I have the kids with me. We're fighting about it, but I don't think I'm in the wrong. You're not the jerk. It sounds like you spent several years living tight, sharing an apartment with your grandmother, taking care of her, etc. You certainly weren't living high on the hog then, and you aren't now. You bought a small home and a reliable car, both things that will benefit your kids. You put money in their educational funds. It sounds like you're being really responsible with the money, and she's just mad that she doesn't benefit from it. It's not like you came into a huge fortune and bought a beach condo and private plane. Even if you had, you still wouldn't owe your ex anything for our purposes here. I hope your lawyer is correct. No. If she wants to go back to court to get child support readjusted, she is within her right to do so. But just because you have a small windfall from a passing and ensuring that your kids have a safe way to and from your house that is also safe doesn't mean she is entitled to a cut of anything and everything you earn or receive financially. She isn't entitled to any windfall just because you have kids with her. Am I the jerk for suggesting my wife lower her standards so that she'll be less overwhelmed? My wife, 37 female, and I, 38 male, have 3 kids who are 12, 10, and 8. She's in a constant state of overwhelm and very easily irritated, constantly complaining how it's all too much. I'm of course happy to help and do my fair share for the kids or household, but it's never enough because our standards are too darn high. She insists one of us has to be up at 6:45 every morning to make sure the kids are ready and get to the bus on time, which comes at 7:45. I told her they're old enough to not need that much help already. They can all dress themselves and pour themselves cereal and milk. There's no reason for us to be up. She says that cereal isn't a good enough breakfast. They need something more substantial, especially the 12-year-old, and that the 10-year-old has ADHD and will definitely struggle without help in the morning. And anyway, she wants to see them off and kiss them goodbye for the day. So she gets up and I don't. Then she gets upset that I never give her a morning off when all she needs to do is just take the morning off when she wants and let the kids handle themselves. Also, she's super strict about screen time during the week and is exhausted and snappy from arguing about it with the kids and upset that I don't support her strict limit of 2 hours a day. I say as long as homework is done, why not until bed? She says it's not healthy for them. They need to play outside or with games and toys, read some books, just entertain themselves in more ways than one. I agree that they should enjoy other things, but not seeing why we have to make such a rigid limit. She also likes to go out on weekends and do stuff like zoos, museums, etc., but then complains about the planning for the outing and how grouchy the youngest gets by the end of it. And again, I say, let's just chill at home and voila, you've cut the work. I'm an engaged and active parent. I'm not trying to get out of it, but I don't think I should have to help my wife dig herself out of her own self-created holes. She creates the stress for herself and then turns to me to alleviate it, which I think is unfair. Am I the jerk for telling her she needs to do less and then she won't need this level of help? You're the jerk. Your wife's standards are just being a decent parent, and you're not doing your fair share if you aren't helping with these things you consider unnecessary. An 8-year-old and a 10-year-old with ADHD are not ready to totally get themselves ready in the morning, and you'd know that if you didn't sleep through the morning routine every day. 2 hours of screen time a day is a totally reasonable boundary, and family time and enriching activities are also important. Maybe those can be cut down slightly, but just chilling at home all the time isn't the answer either. Stop being lazy and become an actually engaged parent like your wife is. To be fair, a lot of kids around that age have to get ready on their own because their parents already left for work. I was one of them, and it was pretty normal in my social circles, and now I'm a teacher, and I know this from a lot of students. From when I was 8, my parents left at 4:45 and 6:30 for work, and I had to get up and get ready on my own. My mother called every morning at 7:15 to check in with me though. But if my parents would have been home and decided to sleep in instead of getting up with me, I 100% would have felt neglected. Where on earth would that be acceptable behavior from a parent? Wow, OP is completely out of touch with reality. You're an engaged and active parent? You don't sound like it. There are things a parent has to do for their kids in the mornings. Your youngest is 8. Cereal is nothing but sugar. A lot of moms don't want their kids to eat that every day. 2 hours of screen time is generous, not strict. You sound rather checked out. You're the jerk. This is how this reads. My wife is a hands-on, active parent who wants our kids to have well-balanced meals, minimal screen time, and fun and stimulating outings, and that's too much work for me. I'd prefer my kids eat whatever they can find in the kitchen without bothering me, that we stay home and do nothing and the kids play on their devices and watch TV in their spare time. No wonder she's stressed. She sounds like a great parent, and you come off sounding lazy and disinterested in parenting your own kids. You're the jerk. Not the jerk. She sounds like the kind of person who loves to make things difficult and unnecessary. That's how my mother always was, and none of us could stand her. Growing up, we always wished our parents would have divorced and we could have gone with our dad. Life would have been so much more simple without my mother, who always insisted on things being done her way, her rules, her regulations. She's no longer with us, but even at her funeral, all anybody talked about was how bossy and controlling she was. I can't tell you what to do, OP, but if you want your kids to have actual childhoods without a dictator, you really might want to leave your wife. Some people create endless problems, then complain about them, and that's exactly what she's doing. She sounds so exhausting. My girlfriend thinks it's weird for her to pay me rent. My girlfriend, 29 female, and I, 27 male, have been together for about 5 years. For the first year and a half of our relationship, she lived at home with her parents, but spent most nights at the place I was renting at the time. In March 2020, I bought a house and she moved in with me. Until recently, I hadn't asked her to contribute much to household expenses because when she moved in, she was working part-time and simultaneously working on a master's degree and a professional certificate. I've been paying for all of the utilities as well as her car insurance and most of our groceries. A few days ago, I asked her to start paying for her share of the utilities and $500 a month towards the house. She didn't have any issue with paying towards the utilities, but she said it was weird of me to ask her to pay rent since it was my house and I would essentially be profiting off her payment. Eventually, she agreed to start paying me, but it seemed to be under protest. I think $500 is very reasonable, and I don't see how it's a weird request. It doesn't even cover half of the interest I pay each month on the mortgage. Some additional info. I make $140K each year, and she recently started making $40K. She's working on paying off student loans, but is going to have low monthly payments thanks to income-based repayment. My mortgage payment is $2,400 a month. Combined utilities are around $500 a month. We live in a high cost of living area. The home is a modest starter home. A decent apartment in the area would easily cost as much as my mortgage. I don't need the money, but it's important to me that I feel like we're both contributing towards the household expenses where we can. We do plan on getting married. We don't plan on having kids. We split the chores somewhat evenly. She definitely does more than I do since she has more time to spend at home, but I'd call it a 60-40 split. So, is it weird that I ask my girlfriend to pay me $500 in rent each month? It's pretty reasonable to ask her to pay rent, but if you want her to pay rent, you need to have a lease in place to protect both of you should your relationship end suddenly. You might also want to consider splitting the cost based on income percentage as opposed to a random number or 50-50 because there's such a large discrepancy between y'all's income and since you chose the area and size of the home that y'all are living in. If you're going to ask her to contribute to the house, she should benefit from that arrangement with a formal rent agreement that allows her to establish and keep a rental history in case y'all weren't to work out as a romantic partnership. I feel like instead of charging her rent, you should ask her to start paying for her own expenses, such as her car insurance and half the groceries and utilities. If she feels weird paying you directly, you could ask her to put the utilities in her name and pay them directly. That's what we do. My husband pays the mortgage, cable, and phones. I pay electric, gas, trash, and buy all groceries and household goods. His income is way higher than mine, so I pay what I can in order to contribute. It's not weird at all to ask for contribution to the household expenses. She lives there. $500 would not cover living almost anywhere these days. I wonder if she's saying that it's weird because she feels paying towards your mortgage is just giving you money for equity while not building any herself. She may be worried that if you broke up, all that time and money would have benefited her zero in terms of ownership. I know she could be renting and it would be the same, but maybe it's that she knows you versus a third party or a stranger. Or she could feel weird like it's a landlord-tenant relationship. However, I don't think you're taking advantage of her or unfair for her to pay rent. I think if you're renting, not building your own equity is pretty much the deal. Am I the jerk for giving my son non-vegan food behind my wife's back? I, 32 male, and my wife, 33 female. We've been married for 8 years and we have a 12-year-old son together. About 6 years ago, my wife decided to go vegan. She watched a documentary that a friend sent to her, and ever since then has said non-vegan food is revolting and refuses to eat it. After a long conversation, I agreed to go vegetarian and be vegan in the house and around her, but she was happy with it. She also decided our son should be vegan, which after seeing a dietitian, I also agreed with. Things had been fine with this arrangement until a few months ago when I began finding wrappers from non-vegan candy and even burgers from McDonald's in my son's school bag, which he had been buying with chore money. I had a conversation with my son, and he confessed he felt lonely and excluded eating vegan around his friends, and that they always had much better candy than he did, and it wasn't fair. I decided I didn't want him spending his pocket money on snacks and throwing out the vegan snacks we actually bought him instead of buying games, etc. It made no sense, but I also know the way my wife feels about non-vegan products. So I began buying my son what he wanted on our way to football practice instead. Long story short, my wife recently found out what's been going on and completely flipped out. She called me an animal mistreatment enabler and a few other names and said that I was corrupting our son. Now she's not speaking to me. Our son panicked and told her I had bought the snacks for him and he didn't know that they weren't vegan. I don't blame him for that. He just doesn't want to be in trouble with his mom. Am I the jerk here? Not the jerk. I think that my answer at this point would be, our son is old enough to decide what he wants to eat and what his dietary preferences are. If we put him into a situation where he feels he has to hide things from us, that's on us. If your wife is confronting him about this in any kind of intimidating way or trying to make him feel guilty with the same phrases she's using with you, I would prioritize your son and his needs and well-being. Crap like this can cause a lot of problems. As a vegan, not the jerk. We humans are designed to eat meat. It's a perfectly normal thing for our bodies to do. In fact, I'm the abnormal one, not eating meat. I'm old enough to have made that choice, and I'm happy. Your son shouldn't have his dietary preferences forced on him like this, when building bonds is so important. It's his choice what he gets to eat, and you're doing nothing wrong supporting him. Not the jerk. My spoiled daughter keeps taking the car without permission, so I put a tracker on it. I have a daughter who is 15 years old and recently got her instruction/learner's permit after she took a summer driver's ed course and passed the written exam. In my state, the learner's permit has a driving restriction that requires the driver to have a licensed adult who's 21 or older in the front passenger seat with them at all times, no exceptions. She has to hold the learner's permit for at least 1 year before she can move up to a restricted license at 16 years old. We bought her a car during the summer so that she can have a familiar car to practice in with us while having her learner's permit. This will be the same car she will use once she gets her license. The problem is that she's been driving this car by herself without our permission or even informing us. Sometimes we leave our daughter home alone for a few hours so that we can go to the store or on a date, etc. And she's been secretly driving when we're not home. She has her own key and we have the spare. I found out after noticing the discrepancy in the miles in her car. We scolded her and told her that it was illegal for her to drive on her own, and we started outlining the tires with chalk so that we would know if she used the car or not. However, the chalk does not automatically stop her from taking the car out. It only lets us know afterwards if she did. So she still kept using the car and would shrug us off afterwards. I don't want her breaking the law, and I'm terrified of her driving on her own with so little experience. Although she seems to be doing fine as the car has no damage, so I secretly installed a GPS tracking device in the car. We then secretly pretended to leave and waited until we noticed that the car's location changed. I immediately called my daughter and yelled at her, telling her that she needed to come home now. She came back and we got into a huge fight, screaming, and it ended up in tears. She screamed that I was a controlling mother and was invading her privacy, and that this was her car since we bought it for her, so we had no right to secretly install the tracker without her permission. I talked to someone else about it, and they did say I took the wrong approach, and that it was wrong of me to install the tracker, and that I should have done something else. I would have taken the key back, but she refuses to give it to me, and I don't know where she keeps it. Am I the jerk for secretly installing a GPS tracker in my daughter's car? Edit. I do plan to remove the tracker once she gets her license. It's only while she has her learner's permit. Edit 2. Update. We drove the car to a local Walmart because I saw they're pretty friendly with truckers and van dwellers, so I figured that they wouldn't mind a car left overnight. We don't have anyone who lives nearby that we can keep the car at. I called an auto locksmith and they said that the earliest they can come out is tomorrow afternoon, so we're waiting on that. There's a lot of people who ask the same questions and I can't respond to everyone, so I'm just going to answer them here. Why did you buy her a car in the first place? I wanted her to be able to practice driving for her license in a car that would be familiar even after she got her license. That way, she would feel more confident since she knows the car, where everything is, etc. Driving is scary, so I wanted it to be a really smooth transition from her learners to her license. This is also why we didn't think to sell the car either, since we wanted to keep it for this reason. I told my husband about selling the car, and he said he would think about it. He was the one who paid for it. Why did you give her a key in the first place? My parents bought me a car when I was 14 and had my learner's permit also. They immediately gave me a key to it, and I never once drove the car without their permission despite always having the key. I thought my daughter would do the same thing. I've raised her almost exactly how my parents raised me, so I thought she'd act the same way as I did in the same situation. Why haven't you taken the key? I've told her to give it back to me, but she refuses, and even when I searched her room, I was unable to find it. Why haven't you done anything to punish her? I already told her she was grounded a long time ago, and she does not get to use a smartphone. She still has a flip phone. I don't want to completely take away a phone, because I still want her to be able to contact me in case of emergency, but has unrestricted access to her laptop because her homework is posted and submitted online. Why haven't you disabled the car? To be honest, both me and my husband don't know much about cars, so this didn't even occur to us to try. I'd never even heard of a steering wheel club before. We're the type of people who bring our car into the shop for any maintenance, so I didn't know how to disable the car, so the idea of removing parts of the car and such never occurred to us. Why did you think the chalk and tracker would work? Honestly, just because it would have worked on me when I was a teen. I didn't like upsetting my parents, so I never did things like this, and small minor punishments really quickly put me in my place growing up whenever I did misbehave. I thought the tracker was more serious than the chalk because it meant that I would find out she took the car almost immediately before she got too far. Take the keys from her. It's really as simple as that. But a GPS does not prevent your daughter's bad and dangerous behavior. Why does she still have unrestricted access to the keys? So, I guess you're the jerk for not preventing your 15-year-old from endangering innocent motorists. Honestly, I would sell the car. Your daughter is a spoiled brat. You might have to knock a couple hundred off the sale price since you only have one key. You're the jerk. Take the darn keys already. Good grief. Tracking her does nothing to prevent her from getting into an accident. You bought her a car, but I'm guessing it's in your name and you're the one paying on the insurance. Be a parent, not a sneak. Take the keys to your office or someplace outside your home and lock them up. A no-car diet should start immediately for her. Well, what would you do in this situation? How would you try to get the keys from your daughter? Please let us know. Just another example of why I'm so glad we don't have kids, Reddit boy. Karen keeps eating my microwave dinners, and I've had enough. About 6 weeks ago, I, 21 female, moved in with my friend John, who's 22 male. John and I have been very good friends for almost 2 years now after I befriended him at work. 6 months ago, he met this girl, Kat, who's 19. He told me about her the day after he matched with her on a dating app and took me to her workplace to meet her. She seemed very lovely, and I was so happy for him. Since then, John is always inviting her to every friend outing, so I got to know her. We have lots in common, and for John's sake, I wanted to be her friend. However, I think that, in the nicest way possible, she's a bit rude. She does art, and half the time John compliments her work, she says, "You hate it, don't you?" Or times we hang out with other friends, we've had to go home early as she was bored, and John was our ride home. She hasn't done anything to me personally, but I just don't like her much. I'm happy John has found someone who he cares for, but having to stand by and watch how she acts sometimes rubs me the wrong way. Here's where the issue comes in. Yesterday, John and I were at the supermarket to do our food shop. Normally, we would buy our food for the week, and maybe a couple of simple or frozen meals to save for Sunday. However, Kat has been coming over for dinners a few times a week, and she has a very limited diet. She refuses to eat anything other than fast food or simple or frozen meals. She likely has her reasons for eating specific food, and in case it's due to an ED or something similar, I don't want to make things hard for her or pry into something that isn't my business. The time where it became an issue for me is how John has now wanted to buy backup meals for her in case she doesn't like what we're cooking. This would make sense, as before she has been eating stuff that was part of our weekly meal plan. The problem is, John wants me to financially contribute to these extra meals for her. When I spoke to John about this and said how I'm not happy paying half for her meals, our weekly shop cost is just split in half as we both eat everything, he got quite agitated. He called me selfish for not wanting to help her just to save money. I know frozen meals aren't the most expensive thing in the world, but John is in a much better financial situation than I am. And while I can pay my share of the bills and occasionally have outings with my friends, I don't want to be dishing out extra money for meals for a girl I have no real connection to, as these small amounts do add up. In my eyes, if Kat doesn't like what we're cooking, she could come over on a different day, or John could buy backup meals for her out of his own pocket. I feel like a jerk, but I don't think I should be paying for an extra person's food. If my boyfriend had a similar situation to Kat, I'd see it as my responsibility to provide for him and his diet, and I'd never expect John to pay. Am I the jerk for thinking this way? Do any of you have any advice? Not the jerk, but it's time to take a financial and social step back from John as he navigates his new relationship. He can't expect you to help finance the fact that his girlfriend eats like a kid and needs backup meals. That's their expense alone, and perhaps separate shopping is now in order as you two no longer have the same joint priorities. On the flip side, I also wouldn't continue to rely on John as a ride if you constantly want to stay out with friends later. It honestly sounds like your life paths are just splitting at this time, and it's best to acknowledge that and adjust expectations of each other accordingly before bitterness sets in. I'd also get ahead of any rent or living concerns sooner rather than later. If she's sticking around, it may be time to start planning an exit strategy. Nanny bought books for my daughter and expects me to pay her for them. My daughter Ruby is 12. Recently, she's gotten into the original Star Trek show, as well as The Next Generation. Ruby is also a big reader and has started to collect a few of the old Star Trek books that she finds in used bookstores and thrift stores. These books usually cost anywhere from 50 cents to a couple of dollars. My nanny, Tessa, who's 22, hangs out with Ruby most days after she gets out of school. Tessa has been our nanny for over a year now, and she and Ruby get along great. Tessa is big into thrifting and will often keep an eye out for the books that Ruby wants. This is not typically a problem, and Ruby always pays Tessa back for the books using her allowance. The problem occurred when Tessa went on a family vacation out west. Apparently, she went thrifting during this trip, found some books for Ruby. She texted Ruby asking her if she wanted the books, and Ruby said yes. Well, Tessa returned yesterday with a stack of about 35 books and told Ruby they cost $50. Ruby doesn't have this much money and told Tessa. Tessa then asked me if I would cover the cost. I said no, as Tessa had never even asked me about buying Ruby the books, nor was I aware of the conversation between the two of them. Tessa got upset, and I asked Ruby to show me the text, which made no mention of price or even the amount of books she was buying. Tessa only said that she found some books for Ruby. Ruby is on the spectrum and does not read between the lines. You have to be very literal with her. Previously, Tessa has never bought Ruby more than 1 or 2 books at a time, so I told her that she should have clarified with Ruby regarding the amount, or double-checked with me before purchasing, and that I would not be paying the $50. Tessa said she could not return the books because they came from the thrift store. I stood firm in my decision and reiterated that she should have asked me first. Tessa left, and Ruby is very upset. I know Tessa is a student and does not have a ton of money, so am I the jerk for not paying Tessa for the books? Edit, because some people are asking. I am a single parent to Ruby, and while $50 will not make or break the bank, it is definitely an unexpected expense. I provide Tessa with an extra amount of money each month to spend on whatever she wants to do with Ruby, movies, the mall, etc. If she wanted to spend this fund on books for Ruby, that would have been totally fine, but she had already used it up. Edit 2. I definitely didn't expect this post to blow up overnight, so I'm going to add a bit more context. For those of you who are asking how can I afford a nanny for Ruby and still have $50 be a large unexpected expense, I do not pay for Tessa's services. Because Ruby is on the spectrum, she is entitled to benefits from our state, including care. The agency I work with pays Tessa. I'm not involved in that process at all. Update. I appreciate everyone's input. I've seen a few comments hinting to me about the fact that I don't support my daughter's reading habit. Please know this is definitely not the case. We're both big readers and frequent patrons of our local library. I'm always supportive of Ruby getting new books. I talked to Tessa and told her that I appreciate her for thinking of Ruby, apologized for the misunderstanding, and I have paid her for the books. We had a chat about expectations in the future, and I don't think this will happen again. I've also talked to Ruby, and we agreed that I would hold on to the books and she would pay me for them as she wishes. It's important to me that Ruby learns how to handle her finances appropriately, And we've decided that she will get 2 new books every week. She reads very quickly. After reading through your perspectives on the matter, I agree that it is better in the long run to lose the money and salvage the relationship between the 3 of us, and had not considered all of the implications of doing otherwise. Lesson learned. Sometimes it's better to salvage an important relationship than to be right. Pay for the books. Let Tessa know that you can't do so in the future though, without talking about it. Tell her how much you appreciate her thoughtfulness now and always. Daughter keeps using Do Not Disturb on her phone to ignore us. My daughter, who's 16, has her phone on Do Not Disturb all of the time. At first, it wasn't an issue since she would still answer my texts and calls whenever she is out at practice. For the past few weeks, she stopped answering my texts and calls, and she wouldn't receive them since I'd ask her why she wasn't answering and she'd claim that she didn't get them. I'm not stupid. Her phone is on Do Not Disturb and none of my texts and calls are going through. I'd ask my other daughters to see if they can reach out to her whenever she is out, just to ask her what time she might be home. No answers. My oldest, who's 22, would try to call, text, FaceTime, you name it, in order to ask her when she might be home. Over the weekend, my daughter had to attend an event at school, and when I came to pick her up, she went MIA and wasn't answering any of my texts and calls since, again, the Do Not Disturb feature was on. I started to get frustrated over it, so when my daughter finally entered the car, I told her that she needs to start answering my calls and texts, and she had no reason to ignore me when she knew I was going to be picking her up. My daughter gave me the excuse of, "Oh, I didn't see it," again. My frustration turned into anger, so I start yelling at her and said, "None of us are able to easily get a hold of you. Something that normally takes 2 minutes takes 20 or more since we can't seem to get you to answer the phone. Your father and I have been worried sick whenever you don't answer the phone." I then told her she has 2 choices. Either she removes the Do Not Disturb on her phone, or it gets taken away for a week. My daughter rolls her eyes and said it isn't fair for her to not be allowed to have the Do Not Disturb feature on. I said she needs to start answering her phone, or at the very least call us back right away. I said that if she doesn't comply, her phone will be taken away. She begged me not to take her phone, so I said she needs to remove the Do Not Disturb feature. She refused once again. When we got home, I told her if she doesn't want her phone to be taken away, she needs to remove the Do Not Disturb feature. After some back and forth, my daughter removes the feature right in front of me before running to her room in tears. Now, before anyone thinks otherwise, I did allow her to have the phone on Do Not Disturb as long as she answers our calls and texts. We'd have to call her more than once to get a hold of her, but she is completely unreachable. I think I was too harsh, but I was at my wit's end. Am I the jerk? Edit. Some of you are thinking that I'm spamming my daughter with phone calls and texts while she's at school. I do not message her during school hours. The issue is taking place after school or on the weekends. My daughter, most of the time, does not tell anyone where she's going, doesn't ask for permission when she wants to go out with friends, and would sneak out of the house every time her father and I are out. None of my other kids would have any knowledge of where she went, and they'd even asked her, but she wouldn't answer her phone. Sometimes my son will ask her if she could buy him something from McDonald's or if they can go to Target together. We did speak to her before and said she can keep her phone on Do Not Disturb and we would never call or text while she's in class. Edit 2. My daughter has also been lying to us about where she'd go. She'd ask to borrow the car to go get food, but would come home 2 hours later. I'd call her after 45 minutes, but the phone would go straight to voicemail. She normally does tell us if she's going to class or practice, but whenever she goes out outside of those times, she doesn't tell us, she won't answer her phone. It's like she's hiding. Edit 3. Some are suggesting that I take the car keys away. The problem with that is, if there's a car available, she'll take it. She's taken my oldest daughter's car a few times, and when she'd ask where she's going, she would say, "None of your business." My oldest hid the car keys from her, and it would be met with manipulation and my daughter crying and screaming. Edit 4. As stated in the first edit, we do not text or call our daughter during school. My daughter takes the car when my husband and I are not here. If there's no car available, she won't go. My daughter is on spring break this week, and I've spoken to her this morning, and I've taken her car keys. She will not have it back for a long time is all I'm going to say. Not until my husband and I are able to trust her again. My husband and I will have a serious sit down with her when he gets off from work this afternoon. Not the jerk. A teenager has the phone to be contacted. If she can't use it for its intended function, she doesn't need it. The Do Not Disturb function can be set up, such that a priority contact will go right through it. She's choosing not to. Not the jerk. As a parent, this is infuriating. My kids used to do it. There are situations where the do not disturb function is perfectly acceptable and it has its place. But you're paying the bill for that phone. She has a phone out of your kindness as a parent, and she has no right to have a phone. You have every right to insist she takes it off do not disturb. Edit. Wow, so many you're the jerks. Parents get phones for their kid to have some independence and to connect to the world. This parent was not overbearing and spamming the kid with phone calls. When a parent needs to reach their kid, they should be able to reach them. If they miss a text or a call, it's understandable. It happens. This kid was never answering. Repeat, never. The price the kid pays to have the phone is simply be accessible. They get all the benefits of being connected to the entire world, their friends, their entire family, the internet, social media, apps, games, all for the low price of $0 and responding to mom and dad when they call or text. Totally fair. You're the jerk. You have a teenager who's hiding something from you, sneaking out, stealing cars, and you're focused on her not answering the phone? I'm all for teenage independence, but this is way too far. Sort out your kid. I'm going against the grain, but you're the jerk. Not for forcing her to turn off the do not disturb feature on her phone, but for letting her think the way that she's acting is okay. Your 16-year-old daughter doesn't think it's necessary to let you guys know where she's going. She sneaks out of the house any given chance, and she steals people's cars. She's not borrowing someone's car, she's stealing. And you're teaching her that she can get away with it. You're threatening her with taking her phone away? It should have been taken away a long time ago. You say you can't take the car keys away from her because she'll just steal whoever else's car is there? So you shouldn't even bother coming up with a solution? You're raising a kid that's going to be horrendous to deal with in the real world. Someone who doesn't respect boundaries and can't follow rules. This is far beyond the scope of Reddit. She might need to see a therapist. But in reality, it sounds like you guys aren't enforcing boundaries and your daughter has realized she can step all over you. Some kids need a strict parent, and your daughter sounds like one of them. Kids nowadays are becoming a horror to deal with, especially in schools, because parents like you allow them to run the household. Put your foot down, she's your kid, and you're the parent. Stop letting her put herself at risk, because one day she's gonna make a mistake she can't come back from. Rude Karen assumed I was flirting with her and tried to reject me. Huge mistake. This was back in 08 or 09. I was in Ecuador at the time. I was staying at a hostel and was there for just over 3 weeks. Less than a block away, there was an Irish pub. This pub had really good bar food that wasn't on the menu of a lot of other restaurants in the area. So because of that, it was a mixed crowd. Popular with locals and backpackers because of the proximity to the hostel. I'm at the bar with some other guests from the hostel and we're expecting a few more to join us. Next to me is a bar stool, and on the other side of the bar stool are 2 women talking. They're obviously friends. In Spanish, I asked the woman closest to me if she's using this empty chair, and if it's okay if I grab it. Spanish is not my first language, but I can still speak it clearly and confidently, and I grew up speaking it since I was a kid. She says to me in Spanish, with a smirk on her face, that she does not understand me and she does not speak English. I ask for the chair again in Spanish while motioning to it, and she says again that she doesn't speak English. I ended up getting the chair from a high-top table that was behind us that no one was using. At that point, she turns to her friend and I hear them mumble, "I don't know why he's talking to me." And I hear them chuckling to themselves, assuming that I was trying to flirt with her and I guess she rejected me. Cue petty revenge. Throughout the evening, I know that she heard me conversing in Spanish with the bartender, so by this time, she knew I definitely spoke Spanish. The napkin dispenser is directly in front of me and she asks me in Spanish if I can hand it to her. I look at her confused and I point to the napkin dispenser, then look back at her and lean in a little as if I didn't hear what she had said. She again says that she needs napkins and if I can hand her the napkin dispenser, all in Spanish. I look at the dispenser and then back at her and I very clearly say, "Lo siento, no habla inglés." I'm sorry, I don't speak English. She gives me shocked Pikachu face, she turns bright red, and then I give her the cold shoulder. Don't flatter yourself, lady. I wasn't trying to flirt with you. I was just wanting the bar stool. No, the bar was not loud. There was music, but easy to carry on a conversation. So yes, I'm sure I said it correctly. I am bilingual. Spanish was not my first language, and I typically don't write in it, but speaking it is fine for me, and I've been doing so since I was a kid. Yes, this story really happened. Seems to me like she might have been the one doing the flirting. Am I the jerk for making my husband pay for a mistake out of his allowance? My husband and I have an allowance system that prevents a lot of arguments about incidental spending. Both of our salaries go into a joint account for all bills, investments, and agreed upon purchases. The allowance is a smaller amount, $50 to $100 a week, but always equal for each of us, that gets moved to separate accounts for each of us, with the understanding that we can spend this money on whatever, no permission needed. Usually it's spent on individual hobbies and splurges. This works well for us. Today, I was looking through my husband's credit card bill that I had used recently, with his permission, to make some travel arrangements. We don't keep any secret bills. This credit card is auto-paid from our joint account. I saw a $73 charge to YouTube and asked him about it. He said he didn't remember buying anything, so I dug deeper. Turns out he had subscribed to YouTube TV last December to watch a football game on a road trip, and he had forgotten about it. I had no idea because this was his YouTube account, his email notifications, his credit card. The total charge added up to $675. I admit I was annoyed and I made some short comments. You should always set a reminder to cancel these things. If you were responsible about checking your email, this might not have happened. There's a history of him being irresponsible with bills and missing important emails. I manage almost all of the finances. We're in good shape, but I hate the idea of waste. We weren't even utilizing that expensive subscription. He paid that money to watch one thing 10 months ago. I told him that to be fair, he'd have to pay the $675 out of his fun money. He had more than enough in there because he was saving for a bigger hobby purchase. I canceled the YouTube subscription on his phone, then used the banking app on my phone to move the money from his allowance account back to the joint account. I probably should have asked him to move the money himself, but I was upset. I felt more calm after doing the money transfer because to me, the matter was then settled. He got irritated and said he shouldn't have to pay out of his allowance for a simple mistake. I said, everyone has to pay for their mistakes. That's how life works. Maybe I was harsh, but the wasted money was all on him. I don't see any better way to resolve it. He pointed out that we are doing fine financially. We're fortunate that $675 out of the joint account won't affect our budgeting for the month, but it will make a big difference to his savings for his hobbies, as it is close to 2 months of his allowance. His allowance. It was the principle of the matter to me. I'm very careful with money. No matter how well we do financially, I'll always look for good deals and avoid frivolous spending. So, am I the jerk for moving my husband's fun and allowance money to pay for a mistake that he made? Edit. I appreciate the responses, as reading the objective viewpoints helped me realize I behaved badly, more punitive than fair. Marriage is a partnership, not a balance sheet, and honest mistakes happen. I reacted out of irritation about the money without thinking about the bigger picture. I called my husband and apologized. He said he didn't blame me for being irritated, as he was irritated about the money too, but he appreciated the apology. He said we could talk later about moving the money back or not. He should be grateful that he has such a great mom. This is how I feel. Like the money is being micromanaged and OP is treating her husband like a kid. I could never. The entire system of allowances, etc. Best option is to have a joint account and then also have separate accounts. A set amount of money goes into the joint accounts each month to cover bills and savings, but the majority of each individual's expendable income can stay within their personal account, and they can do with it whatever they want to as long as it doesn't jeopardize the overall finances of their marriage and partner. I would never share my finances with someone who wanted to have allowances. They can treat their own income that way if it works best for them, but I don't want someone else controlling how I spend my money so long as I'm not misspending or hurting our overall marriage. If he only used it once ages ago, he might be able to get a refund by reaching out to customer support. I assume you'll be the one doing that for him. Not the jerk, because it seems like he's habitually irresponsible with money and this is the proverbial straw. Unfortunately, you're the jerk. I'm like you in that I'm very careful about charges and reviewing my credit card bill, so he or you should definitely be doing that. He shouldn't have been so careless, but it was a mistake. Everyone paying for their mistakes may be how life works, but you're a team and it doesn't affect your finances. Let's use the golden rule here. Would you want him to punish you for a mistake like this? OP. You're right. My reaction was out of irritation, but it was purely a mistake on his part. Despite the carelessness, he didn't do it on purpose. After having some time to calm down and read these objective responses, I realize I'm in the wrong and I will apologize to him. To be honest though, I would pay it back from my own account if it were me. I would feel too guilty about the money and the mistake otherwise. While it was a mistake, and he should have been more rigorous, he's not your 12-year-old kid. Allowances, taking away allowances. You both are adults here. A mistake was made, it's been corrected, and see if there's a pattern. This isn't a mistake where you've gone broke or can't pay your bills, etc. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her husband? Please let us know. Bruh, if I make some sort of mistake and waste $650, I'm not gonna expect anybody else to pay it. That's up to me. I did it. I should take accountability for my actions. Accountability though, Karen, that's the word. Reddit, you know, they're just not big fans of that whole concept. No wonder they're all so crazy. My boyfriend's female friends have disinvited me from multiple holidays. Should I accept this? I'm in a long-distance relationship with my boyfriend, and today we've had a really difficult day communicating due to me feeling quite depressed. He's been out drinking all day with 2 female friends, and I've asked him if we can chat about a few important things when he gets home. He gets home at about 10 p.m. and is pretty wasted, so we don't really get anywhere with our discussion. He then tells me around 11 p.m. the 2 girls are heading over because one has just had a huge fight with her boyfriend. I ask him to ask them to go somewhere else, as I really want to sort out our issues, and he lies and says, they probably won't turn up. 10 minutes later, he says they're out the door, but when I dig a little, it's actually only one of them. They are friends, but they do have a history. He's aware that I'm not comfortable with them on a one-on-one when booze is involved. Not through lack of trust, but more so I feel it's disrespectful to me. He begins to hang up on me, telling me I'm being irrational when I keep asking him to please respect my boundary. So I tell him if he won't listen to my boundary, I'll ask her, because we went to school together and we are reasonably friendly. He continues to go off on me, telling me I'm irrational, while she tells me how platonic they are. But neither acknowledge the fact that as a long-distance couple, one thing I don't feel comfortable with is drunken sleepovers with old flings, as I don't feel like we need the added stress, and I know he would flip if I did. Why do people stay in relationships with people who do this kind of stuff? I just don't get it. I've clearly laid out all these boundaries to him multiple times through prior conversations. Am I the jerk for messaging her when he ignored me? I would love to hear what people feel a fair compromise would be, and also if I need to consider if my expectations are too high. For context, the clique is my boyfriend, 2 girls and 1 guy. I attended school with the girls and briefly dated my boyfriend's male friend 6 years ago. They also have all done things together in the past, kissing only. My boyfriend and I began dating in December of 2022, and I've known him since childhood, but we lost touch for over 15 years. At the beginning of our relationship, I sensed negativity from this group of friends, but was reassured by all of them that there was no issue. My boyfriend and myself also cleared things with his friend who I had dated, who assured us there were no unresolved issues and that he was happy for us. Fast forward 3 months and they were drinking and book a holiday. My boyfriend initially invited me, but the group stated they didn't want it to be a couple's holiday and therefore they didn't want me to go. His male friend at this point cited our history as a reason why he felt uncomfortable. I reluctantly accepted this, but assured my boyfriend I didn't think it was appropriate for the past to be used like this in the future, as I felt we should all move forward and accept the present. The issue did cause a rift between myself and my boyfriend, affecting how secure I felt in the following months, as I wasn't sure how he would respond in future instances. Another trip was discussed, and my boyfriend said he would ask his friend not to exclude me, but a while after this conversation occurred, his friend again messaged their group chat to request if it could be just friends. By this point, my boyfriend has not stood up for me regarding this issue for many months, and last week I became fed up of the atmosphere and messaged 2 of the friends asking why they kept covertly uninviting me. They both responded very defensively, and the male again reiterated our history as a relevant reason. He also stated the 4 of them have a special friendship, and time together as a 4 is valuable. My boyfriend has seconded this. He said initially he would have liked us to get along, which we do, but that's obviously not what they want, and despite my efforts, they prefer it just being the 4 of them on holidays and trips. He also said he wouldn't be against supporting the exclusion of me on certain trips, as you can't force them to want to spend time with you. All I want is for us to just be mature, squash it and move on, but it does feel like no one wants to do the same. It also feels like my past dating history is being unfairly used to justify this. I have no issues with him remaining friends with them. I only take issue with the cliquey nature, and I feel that this can't really coexist healthily with our relationship. I'm very comfortable with conflict resolution and would happily move past this, but I sense these people aren't and won't want to. We're currently on a break while we both evaluate our boundaries. I know I shouldn't pass the blame on to his friends, but it does aggravate me that their preferences are having such an impact on our relationship, and rather than ask them to reevaluate their position, he finds it easier to blame me, telling me, "You're letting it ruin us." They really are a childish group, and your boyfriend is really no help. Don't force yourself into that group dynamic. It doesn't sound like it would be fun or healthy for you. If I were in your position, I would develop friends and hobbies outside of him and his friend group. Take some trips without him. Don't make him the center of your life, and don't give the stupid friend group the pleasure of knowing that you are bothered. You should also consider if he balances the time that he's spending with you versus taking trips with them. If not, then you have a discussion with him and decide if the relationship is worth the drama. OP. That's the thing. I generally don't have complaints about how he splits his time. We're long distance, and I live in England for the most part, and them in Ireland, but myself and him visit back and forth. I just don't like the precedent that it's okay for me to be excluded from future trips from the get-go. But at the same time, if he himself is saying, "I want it to only be the four of us," I don't know how to feel about that considering the way that it's all happened. I'm torn between respecting his wishes and ignoring them, or insisting on more respect. Final update. I've explained my feelings over and over, and I've now walked away. I cannot maintain self-respect while accepting a partner who harbors and encourages this type of exclusion, and quite frankly is bullying me. It's an extremely hard choice, but needed for my own sense of self and peace of mind. Am I the jerk for reaching out to the bride's makeup artist behind the bride's back and almost getting the entire bridal party fired as clients? The bride, Rika, is super nice and understanding. Her main request to the bridesmaids was having hair and makeup done by the same hair and makeup artist, with Rika paying the morning of the wedding for the getting ready hangout. Rika had her mind set on a specific artist that offered a fancy bridal experience with lots of extras, and she was very excited about it. I wear bold, dramatic makeup daily. I had no issue sticking to Rika's very different preferred style for her wedding. However, over the last few years, I had a number of painful reactions to makeup products, and I was never able to figure out the trigger. If I immediately take makeup off, pain goes away in hours and discomfort fades in a few days. While reactions are rare, I now stick to specific makeup lines that I know work for me. I asked Rika if she could ask the hair and makeup artist what products they use, or I could do my own makeup while everyone else was getting theirs done, trying for the same look. But Rika just kept saying that she had a reputable makeup artist that followed professional standards of hygiene, and that the makeup would be quite light. It seemed in her head, reactions could only happen with a shady makeup artist or heavy makeup. Rika said she could pay for me to have a trial done on the same day she'd have hers, so I don't have to worry. I agreed like an idiot. Then I realized that didn't work, because if the makeup artist used a triggering product, I would still have a painful reaction just on a different day. I messaged Rika again, and I had the same pointless conversations. The trial day was coming. I didn't want to just cancel. It made sense in my head to message the makeup artist with my question directly. Unexpectedly, the makeup artist straight up said she can't work on me for liability reasons, as I can't identify problem ingredients. Not even using products I name is safe. She also asked if the bride was aware. Turns out Rika had filled out a form that confirmed no one had known makeup sensitivities. I don't blame Rika. She signs medical and customs forms without reading them. But the makeup artist was enraged. She almost fired Rika as a client 5 weeks ahead of the wedding. They worked it out. I haven't even heard of a makeup artist with such forms or such a hardcore stance in general. Rika and her maid of honor since implied I was intentionally sabotaging so I could do my usual attention-grabbing makeup. I'm hoping that's maid of honor and bride stress talking, and not what Rika really thinks of me. Several people told me I should have just risked it, considering my reactions, and the chance of them occurring in the first place, are relatively minor. The more people say this, the more I'm thinking that maybe that is what was expected of me as a friend. Obviously, my worst move was messaging the makeup artist directly, but I wasn't getting anywhere with Rika, and I was afraid that she'd be mad if I just said I wasn't doing the hair and makeup thing. But the more I think of it, going behind her back on something so important to her may make me a jerk. Edit. People keep asking about patch testing. My reactions only trigger on my lips and eyelids. Arm swatching or whatever doesn't help. Edit 2. I've been to doctors and had allergy tests done. Nothing. They think it's not a true allergy, but a reaction to something my body finds particularly irritating for some reason. There's no obvious common ingredient. I have every outward symptom for referred pollen energy, but not an actual pollen allergy. Not the jerk. Addressing your medical needs directly is totally reasonable. To be honest, I would be willing to quit the bridal party over it. You never know when a skin reaction could turn to something more serious. Not the jerk. A reputable makeup artist would be okay with you bringing your own products for her to use if you're allergic. Am I the jerk for leaving my boyfriend when his ex passed, leaving him to take care of his kids full time? I, female 26, have been with my boyfriend who's 30 for 2 years now. He has 2 kids who are 6 and 4 with his ex-girlfriend. She moved to another state with the kids to be near her family when they broke up 3 years ago. He got them on vacations only. I knew all this when I started dating him. I had no issue with this, but told him up front that I didn't want to be a parent. My mom basically made me raise my 5 younger siblings. The oldest of them is 6 years younger than me, and I had to change his diapers and feed him formula. I went low contact with my family when I left home at 18. I can't imagine doing that again. He was also snipped after the last kid and didn't want any more. He was fine with me not wanting to be a parent and just be a bonus adult. We were taking it slow, and I didn't even meet his kids until a few months back. We took a trip together and got along great. Things changed 2 months ago when his ex passed. The kids were really sad as they moved into his house. We were not living together, but he asked if I could move in to help him out, just for a while. I couldn't refuse and I stayed, but I started hating it again. I hated how clingy the kids became and how much responsibility I had. I did my best, but my mental health started getting worse every day. I didn't even get help from my boyfriend because he was struggling too. Last week was especially bad since the younger one had a cold and wanted me to nurse her back to health exactly the way her mom would have. The soup wasn't the same. The song and story weren't the same. I didn't hug her the same way her mom did, etc. were some of the long lists of complaints. I know she's grieving, but I was already working from home and stressed too. When I told my boyfriend he should take over, he said that they need me more since I am a mom. It triggered me. I didn't want to be held to a mom's responsibilities again. I told him I can't do this. He said I needed to stop acting like a kid and step up. I understood that if I stayed, my whole life would be like this, never measuring up, never being enough, and all the responsibilities of a mom. I left yesterday, moved in with a friend. My boyfriend, ex-boyfriend, is blasting my phone calling me a jerk. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. No one should feel obligated to parent someone else's kids, and you've already done that once. Don't do it again if your mental health isn't up to it. The fact that he said, "since you're a mom," shows he hasn't understood or cared to understand any of your past experiences and the boundaries that you've established. Why is he not at home with his sick kid? Listen, he wants you to move in so you can take over all the parenting decisions and responsibilities when he can continue on about his life. He even called you mom. After hearing about what you've been through, he still had the nerve to do this. He needs to step up and be there for his kids, and you did the right thing. Am I the jerk for turning down my stepdad's offer to walk me down the aisle? I, 27 female, have chosen to walk down the aisle alone on my wedding day. The decision was made for 2 reasons. My dad passed when I was 7, and he would be my #1 choice if he were alive, but he's not. And 2, my mom has made it perfectly clear that she would find it disrespectful to my stepdad if she walked me down the aisle, and so we would not do it. Given that both my parents are out, and I don't want to ask my paternal grandparents to do too much, my grandma and I are already sharing a special dance. Walking alone is what I feel the most comfortable doing. I could ask my stepdad, and even when I contemplated my decision, I knew he would want to do it. But it would make me sad to have him walk me instead of my dad, if I'm honest. I think my stepdad is a good man, and he has tried his very best to be a dad for me. But I didn't want a dad when I lost mine. I wanted my dad. Nobody else was ever going to be able to fill that role in my heart. I asked my mom and stepdad if they would like to do a joint toast or 2 separate ones, and whether they would like to walk down the aisle or dance to specific songs. While discussing this, my stepdad asked who I would be walking down the aisle with, and I told him I was walking alone. He offered to do it, and I said it was a lovely offer, but I would walk alone. He pressed me on why, and I said it felt like the best option. He said it would mean the world to him if he could do it. If just once he could feel like he's a real dad and not just the second place to my dad. I told him I understood, but it was not an option on the table. He said he was already being shamed by having to watch me dance with my grandma when it should be a father-daughter dance. But to have everyone watch me walk alone when they know I have a stepdad is going to send a very big message. I know people will ask about details on our relationship, etc. I met my stepdad when I was 9, and he married my mom when I was 10. He offered to adopt me and give me his last name, and I turned him down 5 times in the 8 years that I lived with them. He was married before my mom, and he lost his wife and his unborn baby in an accident. He was also made sterile by the same accident. He always longed to be a dad. We got along well, but our relationship was always more to him than it was to me. Where he sees a daughter and wants a daughter, I see a good man and someone who is a great spouse to my mom and good to me, but does not fill the father role he wants to emotionally for me. Physically, he did, but emotionally, I never felt like he was my dad, and everyone in our lives is aware that I feel as though I have only one dad and my stepdad is my stepdad. My mom and stepdad are not paying or contributing to the wedding in any way. My fiancée and I both have savings, and we're putting those into the wedding. Though our wedding will be small since we want to prioritize other things. My mom and stepdad say that I'm rude and heartless for turning down their offer. Am I the jerk? Not the jerk. The only rude ones are your mom and stepdad. While I can definitely sympathize with him, he's making your wedding about himself. He may be a good man, but he's definitely very selfish in this particular case. Stand your ground. It's your wedding. Your dad must have been amazing, and I'm sure he'll want you to be happy on that day, and every other day. No jerks here, but this post, I'll be honest, shows once again why step-parents don't like to invest emotionally in their stepkids. You're the jerk. Publicly embarrassing a man who wanted to be your dad, wanted to adopt you, who raised you, who loves you, rejecting him because he's not someone else. Wah wah. Thousands of kids in foster care would love to have an adoptive dad like yours. And your mom's a jerk for not getting you help. It's your day. Do what you want. But you're cold-hearted and apparently don't mind that character trait being the star attraction at your wedding. Doing what you want doesn't mean getting to humiliate people who raised you and did nothing wrong. Your stepdad sounds like he will be a class act and not embarrass you. If I were him, I'd just probably RSVP no and step back. It's an invitation, not a summons, right? You clearly care more about the fantasy image of your biological dad than the person in front of you. I hope your stepdad wakes up and makes sure you don't inherit anything if your mom passes first. No hard feelings since he's nothing to you. Completely agree. For the 45 seconds it takes to walk, it would be a massive thank you for the emotional, physical, and financial effort he has helped with over the years for a kid that wasn't his own. You're the jerk. Never raise kids that aren't yours. They won't appreciate you and will only resent you more and more. Don't fall for the fairy tale stories. It never works out that way. Well, what do you think? Is Opie the jerk or not? Please let us know. New teacher is stealing school supplies that the parents bought. I'm 35, female, and my daughter, Nanny, who's 8, started a new school this August. We moved from one coast to another, and we had some adjusting to do. When she started school, her teacher gave us a list of supplies she needed. Things like 24 packs of crayons, 300 pencils, etc. These are examples. I don't remember exact numbers, but it was quite a lot. I got everything on the list. The school is located in a very good district, and most parents are well off, and as far as I know, most parents have bought everything that was on the list. You'd think that it was done and dusted, but no. We're a month in, and Natty just brought a new list home which lists the same supplies in large quantities. I thought it might have been a mistake and messaged other mothers in our group chat, and they were as surprised as I was. However, the list was confirmed by an email we received from the teacher, asking us to bring the supplies as soon as possible and that lists will be supplied to us every 4 to 6 weeks. I know that kids go through a lot of supplies, but not this many. It was all very odd. I tried to snoop a little and find the teacher on Facebook, but I couldn't find her. However, when my friend came over, she was able to locate her. It seems that the teacher blocked all the parents on Facebook. Turns out that the teacher is selling supplies, crayons, etc. on the marketplace, and she had a page and a link to her website. To say that I was shocked would be an understatement. It seems that she's asking the parents to buy extra supplies and then resells it. What other reason does she have to require over 400 packs of crayons every 4 to 6 weeks? Like I said, most parents supplied everything on the supply list. I've kept it to myself because I'm unsure of what to do, but I am considering reporting the teacher to school so they can properly investigate. I thought it was the right thing to do, but my sister-in-law is a teacher, and she told me I would be the jerk if I were to do that, because kids go through a lot of supplies and no way the teacher resells them. It's probably a coincidence. But I don't know. It doesn't sit right with me. I haven't told other parents about my suspicions because I don't want to start a witch hunt before school can investigate. But would I be the jerk for reporting her? Speaking as a former teacher, this is disgusting and outrageous. Get her fired. Go straight to the principal, and if he does not fire her, take it to the school board. The teachers' union will not protect her on this. Absolutely not the jerk. Unbelievable. I'm not a teacher, but I have a lot of teacher friends and thought this was going to be one of those the teacher puts all the supplies into a communal pot for the school year type situations. But taking them and reselling them? That is absolutely wild. OP, not the jerk, report her and don't let the fallout of her actions trouble you one bit. Not the jerk. I'd request a meeting with school officials and tell them discretion is a must and bring evidence of her reselling on Marketplace and the two lists, the times apart between lists, etc. Bring all the receipts you have. Tell them that you aren't trying to witch hunt this teacher, but that you also do not want to be supplying school supplies if she is reselling them, and that you find it ridiculous that you need to supply new products every 4 to 6 weeks as it is unreasonable. Also, that you haven't brought the Marketplace reselling to the attention of other parents as to not cause an undue attack on said teacher, but you are sure they would feel the same way and they find the new supply list every 4 to 6 weeks ridiculous. You're the jerk. People like you have no idea how hard it is being a teacher in today's public school system. I was a teacher for 4 years until I was wrongfully fired due to the constant harassment from students. I couldn't take it anymore and said some things to those brats that the board did not agree with. Maybe if they paid us appropriately, we wouldn't have to steal supplies and resell them just to keep a roof over our heads. This practice is much more common than you'd think. We also would keep a decent amount of pooled money from the field trip collection. It's just a perk of being a teacher. Sorry, not sorry. One day we'll all strike and straight up quit. Who's going to teach your brats then? It definitely won't be me. By the way, thanks for paying my college debt. With all of my unemployment benefits and now zero college debt, I'm pretty much retired at 28 years old. I'm seeing a few of the dads I met while I was a teacher. Hopefully one of them will be having a baby with me soon. Then we'll see which one gets excited when I tell them we're going to be parents. He'll be the easiest one to hook for child support. And if he wants a paternity test, my girlfriend who works at the hospital knows how to fake them. She makes over $100,000 a year under the table because of this. She's already told me whatever I need, she'll do it for free, because that's what friends do. You were a teacher? God help our public school system. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or the teacher? Please let us know. I'd create a new Facebook account and meet up with her to buy some of the items. That's when you confront her and record the whole thing, post it on YouTube and watch it go viral. Hopefully you'd get more thumbs up than we do. Most of our viewers don't click that like button, and it breaks our hearts. Hint, hint. Karen demands I bake her a wedding cake at a huge discount. I, 32 female, have a friend, Ashley, who's 33, who's getting married the first week of November. We've been friends since we were kids, and I'm also a bridesmaid in her wedding. We've been talking about wedding stuff for the past year, as I recently married in April, so it's been fun doing wedding stuff together until Ashley dropped some bad news. The person responsible for the cake for her wedding is moving and is no longer able to do it. She was refunded her money, but now is out of a cake. I'm a cake decorator myself. I was a teacher, and this is my first year as a school administrator, but I've held jobs in high-end bakeries and make cakes for fun out of my house. I don't have a cake business as I don't want one. Ashley asked me if I can do her wedding cake. I at first declined as I never do cakes for large events, but with the date coming up and her not being able to find anyone, I caved. Ashley wants a 4-tiered cake with 4 different flavors and 100 cupcakes, 25 of each flavor. The decorations will require me to order specialty molds and I'll have to hand paint some gold onto the cake. Total cost came out to $825, $100 more than the previous baker. Ashley was upset and said I was overcharging, but I showed her the breakdown. I used the same pricing system as one of the bakeries I worked at, and it wasn't even the most expensive one. I told her I would do it for the other quote if she was strapped for money, but Ashley then asked me to do it for only $150. When I asked why, Ashley said since she's my friend, she could get a good deal and she could use the money to upgrade the hotel for their honeymoon, to think of it as my wedding gift to her. I told her she was getting a good deal, as I was willing to go to the price point of the previous baker. but she mentioned that I did my sister's cake for free several years ago and do free birthday and anniversary cakes for my immediate family all the time. I told her family and friends are not the same. Plus, I had more time to do my sister's cake, as I had less responsibilities as a teacher back then compared to what I do now. She told me I needed a friend discount, so I said, "The discount is, you get 0% off 100% of the time, and if you keep bothering me, I'll even add tax." Basically, Ashley didn't like that response and has told the rest of the bridal party what I said, so I'm getting pressure from 9 additional people to drop the price, though some say to half it instead of dropping it to $150. My parents paid for my wedding, so their main argument is I don't need the money nearly as much as Ashley does, which they only know because they saw me using my parents' credit card several times when out wedding shopping. Only her maid of honor, her sister, thinks Ashley is being unreasonable. My husband thinks I should drop out of the wedding and not give her anything, but he also doesn't like Ashley or her fiancé. He thinks she's a spoiled brat. Am I the jerk? Edit. I've only paid for my dress for her wedding. I'm also doing my own hair and makeup myself, but the only money I've spent so far for her wedding on my end is for my dress and shoes. Edit 2. To clarify, baking is a skill. Paying for just ingredients and molds would be maybe $150 to $200, but is already factored into the cake cost you buy. What most home bakers base their price on is the intricacy of the design, the difficulty, their clientele location, and most importantly, time. Then cakes are priced with that combined with the serving size. She has 120 guests. A serving is $475 per person, so $570. Because 100 doesn't divide by 12, but is still a large number of cupcakes, I discounted the cupcakes from $350 per decorated wedding cupcake to the price of a regular plain cupcake with no decorations, which is $250. So the cupcakes were $250. Total price is $820. I upped it to $825, so the extra $5 could pay for the box to deliver the cake, which I don't normally have in my house as I don't typically make cakes that big. Not the jerk. If they all want you to drop the price, they can all throw in $100. A wedding cake and 100 cupcakes for a wedding isn't the same as Aunt Betty's 58th birthday. That's pressure times 10. Not the jerk, and I agree with your husband. You should give Ashley a $700 gift on top of what you probably already spent? No, her entitlement is not your problem. Plus, the harassment is unacceptable, and the longer she waits, the less chance she's going to get her over-the-top cake, and more likely she'll wind up with a sheet cake from Walmart. Not the jerk. Also, reminder on something super important. What if the cake isn't exactly what she thought it should look like in her head? Like, what if the image doesn't match her vision? Do you know how much of a hassle you'd go through to get any sort of payment? Or she'd try to harass you into a refund because it's not what she ordered. She's trying to scam you out of a free cake. For goodness sake, 4 tiers, all different colors? That alone is a nightmare to get just right. Plus, the specialty molds you may not even use again are very limitedly. The cupcakes? Oh no. Because you'd have to ice them at the wedding unless the reception venue has a decent-sized walk-in fridge unit to store said cupcakes and cake in to avoid melting from the heat. But hand frosting 100 cupcakes with frosting that may be different to each plus decorating? Oh no. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or Ashley? Please let us know. No wonder your husband doesn't like her. Never let an Ashley all over you. You'll always talk about Karen, but you sleeping on Ashley's, bruh. What happens when Karen demands to go to Africa with OP? Find out in this video right here, just popped up on the screen. You're gonna love it. Head on over and we'll see you when you get there.